Boys, footy finals are around the corner. Broncos and Panthers looking pretty good in the NRL. Could the Wars cause them any trouble? AFL, we are currently watching a neck-and-neck Carlton take on GWS. Giants fighting for a finals berth. The Pies are minor premiers, but they won't have Nick Dacos for the foreseeable future. And some massive names hanging up the boots. Probably the biggest retiring class in recent memory in the AFL, the likes of Buddy, Rewald, Nick Nat, Isaac Smith, Trent Cotchin, amongst plenty of other stars hanging up the boots. Soccer, the Tillies, so close but so far. An unreal performance, exceeding all expectations, making a semi-final and really carrying the hopes of the nation. We'll briefly talk soccer and the Spanish football president getting himself in a bit of hot water. But this show, boys, it's all about the NFL. If you're not a fan of the NFL, if you're not a fan of NFL fantasy, this is not the show for you. But we do love our football, and it's about to kick off. 2 weeks away, which means it's prime fantasy time. We're going to have a look at the quarterbacks, running backs, receivers and tight ends and give you our insights so you can take that into your fantasy draft if it is this week or next weekend.
I'll be taking notes.
I haven't done your homework.
Nope.
You can also take what I say with a grain of salt because I got the wooden spoon in our fantasy comp last year. Drafted old running backs, not good. Plus a little look at the all the NFL news with the trades, holdouts, injuries, etc., etc. And a final round, looking back at UFC 292, Sugar. How'd you get so fly? Sugar Sean O'Malley is the bantamweight champion of the world, knocking out Aljamain Sterling. We'll chat that boxing F1 in the final round. Do have timestamps on the YouTube. Skip the sports that you like. Check us out on the socials. But we like to start off the show by shouting at beer or a nice cold beverage. Shauno, who you got this week?
I've got Ryan Price in this one. He, in NASCAR today, in the rest of the day, rolled over 10 times. So I think it's worthy he gets a bit of a shout of beer. But the amazing thing is he just walked away.
Good on him.
That's insane.
So, testament to the technology over there. But I think it's a worthwhile clip to go check out. So jump on your socials and check out that one. But it was a massive crash and rollover in the infield. And I think it's deserved of a beer this week.
That's fair enough.
Plus a few Aussies we'll talk later on, sneaking over to NASCAR in the future.
You ain't first, you're last, baby. I'll shout the Boomers. Bit of an expensive shout for me, and maybe they shouldn't have it just yet. But maybe our best chance ever to win the FIBA Basketball World Cup, currently being held. Our group's playing out of Okinawa, Japan, but the whole thing is Japan, Philippines, and Indonesia. 9 NBA players in the squad, the most that we've ever had. And looking at the other teams, America, obviously, definitely favourites and nothing to sneeze at, but it's not like the dream teams of the past where, essentially it's the best 5 players in the world playing for the dream team. And then sort of France, Spain, not as strong as they have been in years gone past. No Greek freak for Greece. Luka might do a bit of damage for Slovenia. Argentina didn't even make it. So a reasonable chance to go really deep and maybe even win the whole thing. Germany stands in the way. We're currently playing them, and Dennis Schroeder's given us a little bit of headaches. So just talking about the European teams and not looking as strong as they have in the past, Germany probably sending their best team ever with the Wagner brothers, Dennis Schroeder, Daniel Thies, and the likes there. So hopefully we get past them. If we do lose to them, does hurt the chances going forwards, but we've already beaten Finland and then just need to win our last group game to get through, but it means we'll have to play the winner of the other group. So important. We'll follow that as the pod goes
would that be
now.
USA?
Are they in the group next to us? I think they might be.
Yeah. Challenging.
We'll
win this game and we don't have to worry about it. Currently down 5, fourth quarter.
Yep.
Monks?
Yeah. Bring it back to yours for this shout of beer. I'm going to shout a beer or possibly a soft drink for Peter Harrison, under 17s, Lindenau Football Netball Club. The other week, so this is probably a few weeks late, against Paynesville, he scored 42 of the 43 goals that their team scored against Paynesville in a 270-odd point game.
Inflicting the Paynesville on them.
Yeah, definitely.
42, I was saying to you boys pre-show, to kick 42 of 43 is remarkable. Like, this guy must have absolute hands of steel, just clunking marks left, right and centre. To not let anything spill out to your crummers and then get their names on the scoreboard. 42 for the big fella. That's remarkable.
Absolutely wild.
Peter Harrison, maybe keep an eye on the name, and who knows, might be kicking goals for an AFL team one day.
Possibly. That 42 goals gives him a total 81 goals for the season.
Doubled it.
So one game doubled his season record as they lead into finals. So I think actually a few of the footy clubs down there have already had their finals in the younger grades. So yeah, probably props to all of those young kids playing through their grand finals as well.
Very good. Yeah. Before we get into the mop, no, America is a couple groups over from us, so we could work out that we get Slovenia or Georgia, I think, by the looks, yeah. So, and Slovenia obviously wouldn't want to get Luka in the round of 16, but don't know. Georgia's got a couple of NBA players, but you'd probably rather get them. Mm. Mop of the week, boys. Spanish football president Luis Rubiales has been in hot water. Spain did win the Women's World Cup, and he put one right on the lips of Jennifer Hermoso post match. Man, was it the passion? I don't know if you can go out there smooching girls on the lips without consent. Pretty much the girls were saying that they're not playing again. Whilst he's still the boss, FIFA's given him a 90-day suspension. It'll be interesting to see how that one all plays out, but a pretty messy sort of situation. He made I probably wouldn't even call it an apology, very half-hearted, didn't mention her by name, and then went out to face the media and gave him the old, "I'm not fucking leaving." The Wolf of Wall Street. Have to trust the subtitles, of course, but I think that's what he said.
Yep.
Yeah. Definitely deserving of a mop this week.
Let's talk some Tillies. We've got the jersey up there. Hey all. Quick.
Got it, Suey?
Quick. Want to get it with a Sue?
Oh yeah, we can. Let's go.
Does that work?
Sam Cernaldo. Pretty shaky start. I was watching those first few group games and they barely got past and they lost to Nigeria. I thought, geez, we'd be lucky to get out of the group here. But they got their campaign really rolling with that big win over Canada. And then that was actually to avoid England coming out of the group. Good win over Denmark. That Mary Fowler ball, really silky. She had herself a real tournament. Probably a household name now after the Women's World Cup. And then that quarterfinal versus France has to be up there with one of the elite sporting moments in Australian history, really. That penalty shootout, a worldly 7-6. Mackenzie Arnold, she was hero, then villain when she hit the post, and then hero again, and then Courtney Vine sinking hers, and it was scenes. But England just way too good in the semi-final, going down 3-1. Sam Kerr, real nice rocket in that one. But
I think that was goal of the tournament.
Pretty much, wasn't it? Yeah. That would have taken some saving. I'd be surprised if some of the elite male keepers were getting to that one. That had absolute heat on it.
It did.
And then, unfortunately, going down into Sweden for the third place playoff. Sweden love coming third, and that rolls us into all the past winners bowing out. So USA, they've won 4 of them. They went down to Sweden. They had the whole equal pay agreement with their men's team. So their men's team was like, we'll do equal pay, no worries, doesn't really matter on results. So they actually would have got paid pretty handedly for that, and a little bit in the US media about, choking and whatnot. But credit to Sweden. Pretty good team. They love finishing third at the World Cup. It's the 4th time they've done it. Japan have won 1. They also got knocked out by Sweden. Germany and Norway didn't get out of the group. So España, first time winners with the 1-0 win over England in the final. Olga Carmona with the winner. And then unfortunate for them that a lot of the talking point really has been about after the game. But congrats to Spain. I think only them and Germany have won women's and men's FIFA World Cups.
There you go. Yeah. Impressive.
Yeah.
Thoughts, boys? Yeah, did you enjoy the tournament?
Yeah, I think overall it was one of the best tournaments. Crowds numbers were basically max nearly for every match. Yeah. Sellouts across the entire tournament. The viewership was really good. I think they were looking at over about 2 billion views across the globe. So that is pretty good. It was the Matildas games were the most viewed televised event in Australia this year, and
since Kathy Freeman.
Recent memory, a lot.
Yeah.
I think there was
11 million
was
people
that
watching the semi-final.
The semi-final, yeah. So
I can't remember an Australian sporting event that's caused so much publicity, so much fanfare. As this comp has.
I definitely like the comparison, of course, is the men in the World Cup. I don't think for the Australians there's been a World Cup recently where the time zone was probably good enough that it got this much attention, whereas this one being at home, everyone could tune in. So
home and time zone obviously plays into it, but the fact that there was a legit feeling that Australia could win this thing after that. After that round of 16, I think that really helped. Whereas, love watching the boys in the World Cup, as does Timmy Cahill and his his
highlights.
Timmy Cahill rockets and
every night before he goes to sleep.
Yeah, that's right. 85th minute versus Japan, 2010, 2006. Anyways. I think that that legitimate feeling of we're a chance here, which we probably haven't had in the men's World Cup, probably sort of added to that sort of national fanfare and following. And like you said, Monks, it's pretty rare. I don't think I've seen it really in my lifetime of so many people being so invested in an Australian team. The men's cricket team, obviously, we always talk about that, and the girls recently too. Rugby, back when we were good at that 20 years ago. I don't know. Nothing for me has felt
nothing in
that sort of national in terms of interest and support.
That's it.
But hopefully, a medal's not out of the question for the Olympics, which are next year.
Yep, Olympics and still young team as well. So every chance to keep going around again. Next World Cup and World Cups after that. So hopefully, it's the start of a good build for a team that will hopefully win the World Cup one day.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's run it into some rugby league.
Just before you do that, can you guys slow it this way? I don't have diseases, but that I know of. Towards me. And then you come across, because he's off the screen.
There we go. Can't see your pretty face.
Yeah.
All right, let's try that again. Let's talk some rugby league. Big upset Thursday night. Parramatta versus Penrith. Someone won a multi. Not sure who was one of the boys sitting at this table. The Eels got some revenge on the woeful sort of performance in last year's grand final. Let's put it that way. But they've actually got the Mickey over Penrith. They've beaten them 4 out of the last 6 outings. Sevo had a first half hat trick. He looked like he could have scored 6 on the night. He ended up with 4. Gutho good. Deal Brown. Probably the biggest talking point was Jerome Luai and his shoulder. Can you chase up the scans?
Well, Gutho as well. If they're out, they're not going to play for Masters Footy, but he's done his knee, I think, and is going for surgery as well.
He was slapping the shit out of his knee at the end there. It was really wounded. I think meniscus for Gutho. I think I did see that. And then a lot will sort of weigh into the discussion, I suppose, in the next few weeks with Jerome Luai and his shoulder. Can they strap it up? For a pre, he probably doesn't play before.
Well, they get a week off
before a prelim. Well, they've still got to win. They've still got to win the first week.
True.
So that could be against the Warriors. It's looking like, really. So no guarantees that they win week 1. Say they win week 1, then they get a week off. Then maybe you can strap the shit out of it and he plays through a prelim. But that's a month away, and with a shoulder dislocation and pain and instability and the rest of it.
Have they said anything about it? Like, have they said, ligament damage? So he could be very lucky and it's just popped out and they pop it back in, but I think that's a very, very rare occurrence.
He left the field with it out. The doctors relocated it in the sheds that evening. So it was relocated before he went to hospital. But basically, with a first-time shoulder dislocation,
confirmed first time?
Good question. I assume it's his first.
I can't think of recent memory. Playing career that he's had one. So.
Regardless, it's very rare to dislocate without damaging a structure called the labrum deep inside the shoulder socket, which for a young athlete generally always is indication for surgery. Plus ligaments. There's lots of ligaments there, so the MRI would have shown which of those would have gone. Inevitably, some would have gone. You can also have some damage to the rotator cuff tendons with a shoulder dislocation.
A lot can go wrong.
So regardless of whether he plays in a prelim or not, he's probably going to have surgery in the off season.
Yes.
The short-term strategy is how stable can they get it, how
many needles?
pain-free, how many needles can they put into it
Yeah.
over the next sort of month, and then how good can they strap it up in the prelim, presuming that's when they want him to play.
Because the big concern is of how key he is to Penrith structures. And I guess this game was kind of showed it once he went out that they really lost a lot of their attacking potency and they run that team. It's a very structured team. Like they've got their set roles, they have their set plays, and they're guys for those roles. And yes, maybe they'll have a couple of weeks to prepare someone else to do that. Now, is a weak-gutted dog
Jamin Salmon.
Jamin Salmon, yeah, he's most likely going to fill in.
Yeah, he could play 6. They also had Cogger, who was more of a 7. So if he joins Cleary in the halves, I suppose we'll find out Tuesday.
Yeah.
The other thing as well for this game, before finals as well, they've got to play the Cowboys, and there's 2 ways they could go for it because Brisbane won yesterday.
Yes.
Brisbane's more likely to get the minor premiership, so they might rest half the team anyway.
Yeah.
And
which is great for the Cows because they're trying to play in.
that's right. So we may not know how they'll line up properly until week 1 of the finals.
Yep. But my point, I think they need him if they want to have another run. If they want the 3-peat now?
Going for 3-peat, and making 4 in a row.
Yeah, I just don't think the way they play footy and the structures they've been playing, they can change and be as successful, especially against a red-hot Brisbane team that maybe is just a bit more X-factory, especially with the live wire that is Reece Walsh out the back.
Bloody oath. We'll get to them in just a second. We've got a few games on Friday to get through. The Wars, they keep rolling. That's 7 in a row. 10 of the last 11. That's the first time that they've done that in 20-odd years. Sean Johnson, be pretty surprised if anyone other than him wins the Dally M. Yep. Be nice if there was markets to bet on it, but anyways, that is what it is.
Been super consistent.
Yeah.
Did miss a couple of games, but I don't think that's going to hurt him. I don't think anyone else has been as good and consistent.
It's probably Payne Haas is probably number 2,
Yes.
which would be huge if a front row forward was able to do it. Speaking of Dally M, maybe the winger of the year could be Dallin Watine-Zelezniak. He's been very, very good. Had the Hattie the week before against Manly, but we haven't potted, so may as well mention that. If you told me that you think Dallin Watine-Zelezniak is the best winger in the competition, I don't know if I would argue with you that much.
Yeah, definitely a season. He's been red hot from a good reason why, because some of those tries, they're not just like wingers classics, finishing tries, like
strong, athletic, airborne.
Exactly. Yeah, really putting down the pace down outside, having to do a bit of work to get most of those tries as well. Like it's been really impressive.
Dragons, kind of dragon.
Can they get the spoon?
Weren't too bad. They would need the West Tigers to win by 60. So I think they're going to be okay.
Who are the Tigers playing?
What is the points difference? That's more than 60, isn't it?
Where am I?
248 to 1. Oh, no, it's sort of 68.
Yep.
And who are the Tigers playing?
You'll get that up.
Yep.
Having said that is 68 points difference. So if they got smashed by Newcastle and then the Tigers weren't able to beat Manly, that's not impossible. It's not impossible given the way Newcastle's been playing.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'd think spoon to the poor Tigers.
Yes.
Speaking of poor fellas, Sione Fano, Cinders Moses on debut for the Dragons. So hopefully his rehab goes well. Friday night, the Cows kept their season alive. 34-10 winners over the Finns. Scotty Drink's pretty good. He had try assist, a few tackle busts. Jermaine Asako, 23 tries for the season. It's most in the comp for now. If you guys talk about the Cowboys and their chances moving forward,
I think we've covered it. They have to win.
The try scores.
You got that one?
Yep.
Is it they win and Raiders lose? Is their only way in?
They need South to lose.
And all South to lose as well. So
I don't think it doesn't matter what happens with the Raiders.
It's more for the Raiders. The Raiders win.
That's more for the Raiders. Yeah, correct.
The Raiders
can miss if they lose and the Cowboys win.
Correct.
But for the Cowboys, they need a Rabbitohs loss, and they need to beat the Panthers. So it'll be interesting come Tuesday night what team the Panthers name.
Yeah, and to finish on the Finns, what a season it started off as.
Really good, up until that magic round.
And I think the back half of the season kind of reflected probably where the club is at the moment, which is, veteran squad that didn't really have much depth behind it. And then once they started rolling through some injuries and then kind of struggling for a little bit of their spine as well as guys came in and out of that, they kind of fell apart a little bit towards the end there, even with the Magic Wayne. But finished 14th and so be above the $3 case clubs in the NRL at the moment. I think that's worthwhile for them, so they'll be happy with that.
Hey, Souths are above them. What are you talking about?
A good draw in them after this week. We'll get to them in a minute.
Agreed. Got probably echo everything that you've just said there. Depth was one thing that really hurt them.
And which is what they've addressed for next season. So they've got a lot of guys coming in as well that'll probably be more the starters, and the guys that played a lot here will be more in the backups as well. So they should have a better squad next year.
And attrition is a factor in the National Rugby League.
Especially when they play
such a long season now.
Yeah.
And
play 23 games. You might play 26 if you've got Origin, and then you got to go into the finals.
Yeah, 24 games. So
yeah, well, 24, sorry. Yeah,
yeah, so 20... If you played Origin and made finals, you're looking at 27, 28 games.
Yeah, if you make it all the way through grand finals, 30 plus. So,
actually, Origin doesn't really make a difference because most of the teams have bought. Well,
true. They don't play that. Well, some of them do.
Nah, a couple times. Yeah, all right, call it one extra.
Yeah.
Anyways, the moral of the story was Dolphins didn't do too bad. I think thinking way back to the preview, I had him for the spoon. You had him about 13th or something?
Yeah, something like that. And then I was confident after their start. I was like, I think they could actually make the 8.
Yeah.
But through the Origin period, through the injuries, their depth was really, really challenged, and they struggled in the back half of the year.
There is a game next week, but whilst we're on a roll, Hammer, unbelievable. Isako, leading try scorer in the competition at the moment.
Confirm how far ahead he was?
He's 23.
So 2 tries ahead.
Of that, ahead of DWZ, who we were just talking about. Alex Johnson, Dom Young.
Johnson as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So could have the bloke that scores the most tries, in a team in their first year. It's pretty impressive.
Yep.
Speaking of impressive, Storm looking pretty good. They always come good at the right time of the season, don't they? 37-16 winners at Amy Park. The big story in this one was Ryan Pappenhausen coming off the bench for 18 minutes. First game in over a year, for 400 and something days. Shattered his patella. I don't know if you boys have seen it before. The MRI of his patella. Jesus.
Yeah, it looks like someone dropped a plate on the ground and smashed it.
Exactly what it looks like. Looks like the bottom of the chip packet, when you're trying to get out the last little bits of Doritos. That's what his knee looked like. A long rehab. A lot of speculation, probably for the last 6 weeks, as to how far off he was. A few games for the Sunshine Coast as well. Leading into it, they didn't rush him back, even when he was playing footy, because the risk of soft tissue injury as well after having that long off. So getting him a few games in Q Cup, and good to see him out there. He actually got in trouble. He's hit someone high, so I think he's just looking at a fine. I think he's just looking at a fine. Xavier Coates scored a hattie in that one. Big story, I think, for Storm fans is Jerome Hughes, MCL. He's had scans today. If you wouldn't mind seeing, maybe NRL Physio might have an update there.
Who was that for again, sorry?
Jerome Hughes.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk about the contracts with Big Tino and Fafita?
It was a couple of weeks ago, but Big Tino got his a 10-year deal, reminiscent of another big JT Tamala, as well. So
slightly different in that it's 3 years confirmed, and then there's an option.
I think the rest is all optional, but it's basically
up to 10.
Yeah, up to 10, and basically a mil a season, or slightly over a mil a season. And then Big Dave Fafita as well, also re-signed for another 3 years, I guess. Yes, 3 years. Yeah, 4, 5, and 6.
So there's heaps of speculation, especially with Fafita, but maybe both of them might have been on the move, which that would be a complete rebuild for a team that, there's only...
It's their best talent on that team.
Yeah, if they lost both, one of those guys would hurt. If they lost both, geez, that would be huge. But now the immediate future of the club is secure, at least the next 3 years. Yeah, and you can build around those two.
Exactly. I think Haslo, that was his first job, make sure they'd stay in. I think both were keen to stay in the Gold Coast anyway, but Hasler's done the job to confirm that.
That obviously spine needs a little bit of work. Brimo's been unlucky with injury.
Is foreign?
I don't think foreign might be off contract next year. He's be old as well. So
there is that connection there with old Des, but
that'd be interesting if Foz is locked in for another year next year. I'm not really sure, but at least for Titans fans, all 16 of them, it's good for their foreseeable future to have those two locked in.
Yeah, I agree.
Chooks beat the Tigers 32-8. Sammy Walker, his first game since round 9. Fair bit of chat around that injury. It was an ACL sprain, like without it rupturing, just stretching of the ligament.
But also he was dropped. So
and then had they been honest about his injury, and he played a lot of New South Wales Cup coming back, and we saw Sandon Smith playing quite well. So Sammy Walker and his future at the club, a little uncertain, but he looked very good last night. And
he scored, didn't he?
Yeah, he scored. I'll get some stats for you. How's that?
So I think the big story out of that was big swinging arm Hardgraves getting 6 weeks. So I think they've finally all his priors caught up to him, and they're throwing the book at him. Not that it's going to matter. They're not going to play finals footy. But,
well, they could. That's the next. That's the next.
In theory,
That's the next thing. Well, I think there's a good chance they do because it's essentially an elimination final next week against South. And we'll talk about. Let's talk about South now. A lot of noise this week in the papers. It's mostly sort of around Latrell, but also around Sammy Burgess. Getting asked to leave, and there was reports that there'd been leaks to the media, and the club's a mess, according to the
they went very West Tigers
at the
this week for some other reason.
They did.
They obviously were sick of hearing about the Tigers for the last month. That they wanted some press of their own. But it kind of all kicked off, I guess, with the Luke Combs. His hair, getting that right.
Unlike Brian Taylor in the AFL.
Yes.
Who called him Luke Coombs, as in suburb that we're in.
Because it kind of kicked off with the shotgun and the beer with big Tuivasa at the Consent on a Wednesday, and then they played on the weekend. And then I think because of that, there was scrutiny of people watching him, and his effort against Newcastle was very lackluster. That then led to the story of the favoured treatment, which sounds like was probably leaked by the assistants because they've both been sacked or left under mutually agreed to separate. So that was Burgess and John Morris, and Morris I think's already signed on to go to the Tigers for next year to help Benji because Tim Sheens has got sacked in the month we've had off as well. So. So that all came out, and then there's a whole bunch of rumours about Jack Whiten wanting out of the club and out of his deal with the club for next season.
Yeah, this time last week that was going around social media like crazy.
Yeah,
and then, that Whiten wants out.
Yeah, and then
nothing's come to fruition. So
some chat about Murray getting stuck into Latrell. Firing a few shots at Latrell.
That one I don't
video
know.
session.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it's. But the thing is, it's very West Tigers. There's all this. Everything came out of the woodwork. All came out of the woodwork. All in the media. All at the one time. So it seems like a few stories were being sat on, and then they had enough ammunition to get G'd up and media.
And some of them blown out of proportion. I reckon, as if a Cam Murray, who his whole game is based around work rate, and he's the captain of a club, wouldn't occasionally spray Latrell, and they just are good teammates and have a beer after the game.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how much to read into that, but the fact that coaching staff are getting stood down before finals and a must-win game, you can definitely read into that what you will. And I think it's obvious with Latrell, the bloke's one of the most talented players in the NRL, but work rate is probably an issue, and it seemed like a very, very long recovery from a calf injury. So were other factors at play there? Was Origin a factor as well, trying to rush back?
Well, we think he's done it. He did it twice.
Yeah.
So he did it and then rushed back to Origin and then did it again. In that period, he's probably not running a whole bunch. So he's not in the best shape on most days looking at that rig. But
it's weird, isn't it? You look at that rig and you'd think, I'm surprised that's an NRL rig, let alone on his day, the most powerful, explosive player in the NRL in recent memory.
And maybe that's just his body type, but probably 6 weeks with no running in the legs.
Yeah.
He's that's not to say that he's still dealing with that a little bit, and maybe that's why he's support play and being a little bit lazy, as you will. at the back there is because of that, because he needs his match fitness and he's still kind of probably getting back from his injury. But South need Latrell. That's the problem. They've been going south ever since. That's a very bad joke. Ever since the injury, essentially, they were top of the table and
been going east to Maroubra.
and since that they've been heading down the ladder constantly, and to the point where they're in 8th at the moment, but have a lot of clubs chasing.
Losing, they're out.
Yeah,
it's that simple. This is an elimination final next week. I think Latrell, to call him lazy might be a little bit of a stretch. You look at a guy like Cristiano Ronaldo, in soccer, and he's also, some of those sort of lazy and selfish and some of those other words get thrown around. I think when you're that good, you kind of get away with it a little bit.
Yeah, I did see a video of Messi playing in there during the week where essentially he just walks around the pitch, walks around, but then he finds his moment and he explodes.
Did you see his goal?
Yeah, and then scores goals. He's scoring he's scoring goals at will. So, but I think it's
sometimes elite talent doesn't have to work hard. Think about Michael Jordan, who'd go play rounds of golf and then go out and score 50 points.
Goals,
I'm not saying Latrell's Michael Jordan, but I'm just saying he's a different kind of athlete, and maybe that does come across as lazy or not fully committed. But I think just based on talent, that's getting him through. Now, when he's 32, will he be able to just get through on talent?
He's still super young.
He's only 24, 25.
Yeah, he's got plenty of time left in him, but eventually, the talent starts to wane. You start to lose a step, and you can't rely on that as much. So, see where he goes from that. I did actually see this interesting stat because he's been 4 years at Souths and 4 years at the Roosters. They went through and checked all his availability. For the Roosters, he missed an average of 7% of their games. And for Souths, he averages over 33% of their games.
Yeah, interesting.
And it's across and it's almost exactly the same every year across those 8 years of his career against those two clubs. So,
well, I suppose that it. Like, is he getting injured because he's lazy, because he isn't putting the effort in,
or is he putting too much effort in as a fullback?
Well,
maybe
rumors are coming out that he's not putting enough effort in. So
I think he's just dealing with too many niggles at the moment.
Yeah.
He's been injured a fair bit at South. The numbers cover that. So
no, that's true.
I think one thing we can agree on is that South, if they're going to do anything in this final series, if they make it, they need a healthy Latrell. So time will tell in the next few days.
They need to go back to round 10 and pick that team, and that's what they need to be doing.
That's right. How much of it is media hyperbole, or how much of it is legitimate concerns for Souths and Souths fans moving forward?
That did remind me. Did you see that their coach liked a tweet that was saying that Liam Knight and I can't remember the other player were masquerading as first grade players? So that also came out during the week and they kicked off, and it was his account, and he had to apologise for it. It was like
I didn't say that.
It was a slip. I didn't mean to like it, etc. But it was there.
Don't worry, that's got me in trouble before. Just be always careful what you like. People are always watching.
Too much bunda.
All right, let's get through these last few games. Saturday night, Broncos 29, Raiders 18. We spoke about it in the lead up. It's a important game for big Raiders, so they'll probably lose.
Yep.
Jack Whiten and Jared Croker's most likely their last home game. Whiten actually late moved to fullback. Croker
played in the centres.
Played in the centres. Chris played fullback.
No, he didn't.
Who played fullback?
Rapana did.
Rapana played fullback. So who also played fullback last weekend and played really well.
Yes. And that's why.
And Croker played off the bench 2 minutes.
4 minutes.
4.
Yeah, and then Frawley played 6.
Okay.
So, like you and I, we have no fucking idea what Ricky's doing at the moment, especially in that back line. Because, they've reported different things, played it all different. They look lost. I can't remember the story. Someone was saying that they wouldn't win a game the rest of the season, and that's about a month ago. They've only won 1, and I think they're 1-3 in that time frame. So,
look at that points difference, minus 119. It's like
they'd be the
Titans
first,
or Dolphins.
They'd be the first team, I think, to make that with a negative point differential was the story.
The lowest points difference ever, maybe?
Maybe.
Surely teams have made it with a -8. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Actually,
I
we'll
reckon-
let Jimmy chase that one up.
luck.
fact check.
Good luck. I reckon there is fact behind that. I think they might be the lowest points difference ever to make the finals.
Yeah.
That would be my thing.
Well, they've won almost their games by close and then been pumped by 50 in a couple. So that's the big difference there. I think the club's in a bit of a shambles at the moment. Some calls on this went back and forth and a few things.
That Hudson Young one was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Like a bad call from the referee.
Yes. But then, Rapana doing trips as well. He's going to be in trouble. So, yeah, like those are the sort of things that just hurt the club. I just don't think they're I want to say, I think there's probably a whole bunch of pretenders in the top 8 for this final series. I think it's, I think we said it before, it's Penrith and Brisbane with the Smoky of the Warriors, and everyone else is probably just making up the numbers at this point.
Knights, smoky. Double smoke.
No, I don't think that's smoky.
Double smoke.
Storm are just Storm, but I just don't think
there you go. There's 4 teams that could win it legitimately.
Yeah, but I don't think they're as good as they've been in the past, the Storm, like this team this year.
I've said this in the past, I think, where I'm like, nah, the Storm, it's not the Storm, nah. And then they just get good at the right time, and I don't think you can ever put, whilst Craig Bellamy's calling the shots at the Melbourne Storm, I don't think you can ever put a line through them.
True, but then have they won the comp since Cam Smith retired?
No, but they've been really close, and that's also not that long ago.
Yeah, I just don't think. Again, I don't think it's their year.
Look, of course it's Penrith, and of course it's Brisbane. That's why we said at the top of the show they're firming. They're like $2.50 and $3 to win the whole thing.
But what we're seeing,
having said that, I feel like the Warriors or the Storm could win the comp.
Yeah, I don't think. I'm saying I agree on Warriors. I don't think the Storm can.
Interesting. And if you want to be real fun, the Knights are having a really nice late surge.
And that's really dependent on Ponga. Like Ponga's been probably he might even have taken the mantle from Walsh as being the best fullback since Origin period.
On form, definitely.
Yeah, the back half of the year, that's the reason the Knights are there. He's been dynamic for them. So,
but agree big time. If you want to throw pretender tags out there, I think Sharks, Raiders, and whoever finishes eighth, you can have those tags.
Yep.
Back in 2001. Gold Coast Titans had a -3 points difference, so that I think that's going back to that's might be the biggest or the lowest points difference.
But you did have to go back a fair bit. And that was for the rugby, the NRL era. Like I was so close to having that stat right.
That's such a fake stat, dude. Every year there'd be a team that's got a minus points difference in the top 8. It used to be half the teams would make it.
Yeah.
Sean, you're a fake fan. 2019 Broncos had -57.
Yeah,
the biggest. We're going to stick with the biggest.
I think that's what you were trying to say, and now you've just doubled down on just a fake stat, mate. Oh man,
triple doubles aren't real.
India are afraid of the Gabba.
You said that, not me.
Yeah, I stand by it. They're afraid of the Gabba, and it's 1994, and we're rolling out some of the most elite cricketing talent ever. 94's been early. Let's go like 99.
Yeah.
85 plus 25 is 100.
So the
fake maths.
Yeah, the finish on this Raiders Broncos game. Broncos looking as good as they have been. Walsh and Cobbo doing a great work. Payne Haas re-signed on a big deal, so there's been talk about the bit of a cap squeeze there for Ezra Mann and Walsh being the two main ones. Some thoughts about maybe Mann could get a deal with the Raiders.
Mann's been unbelievable.
I think they've got to somehow keep them all. That's going to be the challenge. But they also got their forward pack. All the guys are on decent money at the moment because they're all kind of come through at the same time together. So this year could be the big year for them, especially when the guys all start to cash in and getting offers elsewhere. The
other big story out of Broncos camp is Pat Carrigan missing the game, foot scans.
I think it's going to be okay was what they were saying.
Can you chase that?
Yeah, because I'm sure I saw the other, either today or yesterday, that they were more confident in the foot scans, that it might only be a week or two.
Well, if he's cleared fracture and cleared any major ligament damage, then it'll be sweet. It was a training accident, I think. So whilst you chase that up, going back to last time the Broncos have ever won the minor premiership, which is looking more and more likely. 2000 was the last time they won the minor premiership. Blokes in the team, Lockyer, Takiri, Tony Carroll, Saylor, Webke, Tallis, Thorn, amongst others.
Yep.
Pretty elite company if this young Broncos team really goes out and wins this minor premiership and maybe wins the whole thing. So there is some news on Pat Carrigan.
Would be a massive turnaround as well, considering where the club was
chasing
last 2 years.
Well, that's right. Who had him in the top 8 when we did our predictions? I think you had him about 8th or 7th maybe, and me and you had him missing.
Yep.
So no one expected big things.
Yeah.
And on top of that, no Carrigan, no Reynolds last night. Mm-hmm. So they're coming down to Canberra, traditionally a hard place to win when it's cold and, there's a few people turning up. And
Springtime, bro.
Yeah, it's not as cold as normal.
Yeah.
Probably for Queenslanders be feeling it a little bit. And go out and win pretty convincingly without two really good, or two of your best players, essentially, albeit a couple of questionable refereeing decisions.
I think they've said for Reynolds he'll be back for finals. They're just trying to get him ready.
Yeah,
What'd you have there?
News and Carrigan he should be ready for finals.
Yeah. Perfect. So cleared of serious damage.
I think so. I think this is before they went for scans, though.
Well, how do you clear him without a scan?
I think
the headline said after scans.
After scans.
Did it?
Yeah, there you go. Carrigan's injury revealed as severity confirmed after scans.
After scans.
So he's had his scan and it's not severe.
Sure. Let's do that. Go with that.
It's all coming up Millhouse.
Today, don't need to talk much about Manly Dogs. Manly winning quite comfortably, but neither teams will be playing finals. Newcastle Knights, worth talking about.
Yep.
The game was sold out last weekend. They had 29,000 in there at McDonald Jones. Sea of red and blue.
They're starting to believe.
Looked really, really good. They've won, I don't know how many it is in a row now, 7 or 8. And Kalen Ponga, like you said, has arguably been in the best form in the comp in the last 2 months.
Yep.
Had a try assist, 9 tackle breaks, 200 run meters today. That's pretty much been his standard numbers over, since Origin, really. And in that period where everyone's like, why is he not playing Origin? And he's had the head knocks and questioning, the decision making, and he's come out and looked like an Australian level fullback. Really, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think he needed it. Was probably the main thing. He was coming back from the concussions. He would have played probably, I think, 1 game and gone straight into Origin, into, I think, game 2 of Origin. And it was like, rule me out for the series. Let me just focus on my football and get back to it, get healthy. And, since then, because of that, he's been focused on the Knights, been focused on his footy, and he's gone back to the elite talent we know he has and that he can be, and he's really lifted that Knights team.
Likely to finish 5th, which would be home final against a team that we think is arguably pretenders. We're not sure who it'll be. And next week, it'll be that South Chooks game will be electric. Pretty much a knockout game. This time next week we'll know who the top 8 will be.
Sharks can't beat a top 8 side again, so I think
it's only happened once, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think they're 1-20 or something in the last 3 years.
Yeah,
so.
Jeez.
What's their points difference, but
True. It is positive.
Rugby. Should we talk 2 minutes of rugby? We're not.
Well.
There's a World Cup that starts next week.
Eddie Jones been going after the media,
bro. He's up and up, gun. I don't know much about rugby, but that's kind of funny. You got to say, like, we like to sort of poke fun at how much of a shambles, a few certain league clubs are, and the ARU over the last 5 years. Yeah. The questions he was getting as well, I didn't think seemed that bad. Like, it was negative, and he was like, be negative, so we can't win anything, blah, blah, blah. He is 0-4 at the moment.
Yeah, they haven't won anything
under Eddie Jones. They did have a good showing in New Zealand in that Bledisloe. They didn't win. But
Kiwis got hammered a couple of days ago as well. So.
And England lost to Fiji. So it's
going to be an interesting tournament.
Again, we don't watch much rugby, so I don't know about the strength of teams and how serious they'll take in these warm-up games. But speaking of, we have a warm-up game tonight against France. And Aussies lose to Germany. Shit. Just shouted them a beer and they're pissed already. From one World Cup to another, I think the Boomers still have a better chance than the Wallabies, which is a weird thing to say. What did you guys catch much of that press conference? They were literally like just asking him about the selections and leaving out Michael Hooper and Quade Cooper and going a lot of youth, and I didn't think anything was complete, it's not like they was getting completely egregious questions that were attacking his character or the team or anything. And he blew up pretty deluxe. He got very self-defensive about the Akubras as well. It was a funny presser.
Because when he was coaching England, wasn't he?
And heaps of success.
Yeah, and but that recent when they play here when they play Australia in a game, and the crowd was getting stuck in him, calling him a traitor, and he was got really agitated by that.
He's a passionate guy.
Yeah, I think he's definitely. You can see he's passionate a lot more.
He's not a Wayne Bennett per se.
No, and I wonder if it's maybe because it's his second go around as coach. He's getting a little bit more of the social media treatment now, and you can see that getting out there, and he's not really that PR trained. So it's a bit it's just different, I guess, from his first stint.
He's also 5'7", and I don't want to go hard short people here, but sometimes the shorter people tend to just get a little bit let me out of coming from a short ass myself.
Giraffe.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose all that negative media would be built up over weeks, if not months. But
he's also now they're doing ads and saying, I love it when people doubt and shit. How much of it is just theatre of the whole thing?
That ad's pretty cringeworthy.
It's cringe, bro. That is the Australian marketing rugby union pigeon, getting together with his pigeon mates and doing some ads for the World Cup.
But then again, no one would be talking about this World Cup if they weren't doing this stuff.
Well, maybe it's some of that as well. Maybe it's like any publicity is good publicity. Yeah. No one thinks we can do anything this World Cup, stuff. Yeah, we'll go prove you wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know in tonight's game how many starters will be playing for either teams. I imagine they're using it as a really good last chance to show us what you got if you want to try and make a starting 15. But that's against the tournament hosts and equal favourites. So can't imagine it's going to go really well, but go Wallabies. I know about 4 blokes in that squad, I reckon. Shout out to Will Skelton, the new skipper. So hopefully they do well. Luckily for us, our group isn't stupidly hard. Wales and Fiji will be the tougher games.
Yep.
Let's talk some footy. Most you want to hit that button.
Just showering.
Carlton currently down 45 points to the Giants, so I think we can comfortably say we know what our finals games will be. We'll get stuck into that in just a second.
They've scored 11 points since halftime.
Kicking.
Well, there you go. They've just kicked one there.
There we go.
But, they've been having a 5-point deficit at halftime to now being down by 40-odd.
It's a conspiracy, bro. We were talking about it before.
Are they tanking?
They're tanking. They're going to finish 5th regardless. So, they would have played.
Make sure you don't get any injuries.
Yeah, would have played the Bulldogs. It's looking more like Sydney. No, is it looking like Bulldogs?
Oh, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
It's Bulldogs.
No, Bulldogs?
Yeah, I think it's Bulldogs.
Would they be out? Because GW also leapfrogged.
Yeah, so it'll be Swans.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Giants. And Giants now playing for point for percentage. So live ladders will be interesting to watch over the next 8 minutes. Regardless, let's go back to what we do know. Is that the Pies smoked the Bombers Friday night, 8 goals to zip. Quick out of the gates, weren't they? Yep. Bombers finishing 11th after a really strong start to the year. They won 2 of their last 7, and they were iffy wins over the Eagles and the Kangaroos. Bombers fan, sort of cruising pretty well halfway through the year, and then pretty in their defence, pretty injury ravaged.
Yeah. Like I think they started the season probably playing overs, but you hit the nail on the head. Injuries sort of took their toll in a long season. I mean, finishing 11th, can't really complain about that for where they were past few seasons. Hopefully, they're just building to something now. I think there's talks on a few contracts for a few players, so we'll see where that goes. Interesting off season now, I guess.
Have to retire they're young, good players like your Redmonds and your Hines, and they're good young groups of players, and have to keep them, and then obviously look at some recruiting as well.
Especially the guys that
Parrish might be in contract talks as well at the moment.
Parrish, Merritt, can't afford to lose any of those guys.
No, but yeah.
They're sort of like the established.
Yeah, that's it.
Like
Good
in their
leadership
prime
core.
kind of players, but that young core is really good.
Yeah.
Coming through, so have to keep all of them.
That's it.
Nice to see McDonald Tipperwoody getting on for. I think he only touched the ball 4 times, but he was a sub and pretty nice reception for him. Bit of a club legend. So
Second
he's
retirement.
played his last second time. So
Yeah.
who knows? He might be doing the John Farnham and coming back.
I
fucking
think
another
this one's a
maybe.
bit more prominent though.
I think so
he's
too,
getting
and
on
really
a little
only
bit.
was there because of injuries.
Yep.
Pies look good after you're in a real sort of slump since our last podcast. A lot of people sort of questioning, Colling wobbles. Rest of the AFL that's not black and white. Pies fans love to see Collingwood slip up, but they look like the best team in the comp on Friday night, didn't they? Now, Nick Dacos, where is he going to be? This is similar to Jerome Luai, like we we're talking about in the NRL. He's got a tibial plateau fracture, so 6 weeks from the date of the injury would give you prelim final. I don't think they'll be trying to rush him back, and if they win on Thursday night, then they don't have to worry about it. They could get some week off and essentially a 10-day turnaround between those games. Darcy Moore, much more up in the air. So he did his hammy first quarter against the Cats a few weeks ago. McRae didn't seem too concerned. Was saying neural tightness more so than anything. So having one of the best fullbacks in the competition and your club captain in a final on Thursday night, I think would be pretty important. So be interesting to see his status and if he's good to go.
But Dacos, I think I saw it. Someone had been doing some math, and they've had him still winning the Brownlow by a point. But I think that's still it'd be interesting. I think it'd be very hard.
know about
But
that.
It was give him the Brownlow now kind of.
Yeah.
A month ago before he had this fracture, and I'm going to get some odds up now. I think the Bont is the favourite to win it now with Butters sort of chasing, but I think you still get a reasonable price for him. I'll just chase that up now.
Got it here. If
Oh, you got it? Here you go.
Yes, yeah. So the Bont's $2.50. Dacos is still $3.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Missed
Butters-
last 3 games. And
it'll be definitely an
Yeah.
interesting Brownlow show to see, because he'll be so far out in front, and see if the guys can,
who can catch him.
Can they reel him in, or has he done enough? It'll be interesting.
So
Definitely,
Pies will play. I think it's Thursday night. So a pretty short turnaround for their game against Melbourne. That will be, you'd imagine, 100,000 in at the G. A few sickies Friday, I reckon. Hawks Dockers, don't need to talk too much about this one. Very fitting result. Both of these are young teams. Both pretty inconsistent, but on their day look really good this year. I think they'll both get better next year. Jai Amos booted 41 goals at the age of 20. He's a sharp shooter, only kicked 17 behinds. I think he'll really get better and better. Caleb Sarong and Andy Brayshaw finished 1 and 2, although the other way around from what I said it. So Brayshaw finished... No, that is the way they finished. Sarong first in the AFL, 675 posies. He's 22. 671 for Andrew Brayshaw. He's 23. So moving forward, when you've got 2 of the biggest ball magnets and a young key forward who's only going to get better over the next few years, things are looking pretty good for that team in the West. The other one, not sure. The Hawks, similar sort of boat. Newcomb's only going to get better. We saw Finn McInnes, tagging the fuck out of a few players this year. Are probably lacking in their forward line moving forward. Obviously lost Jack Gunston at the start of the year, and Luke Bruce is starting to age a little bit. So I think forward depth is going to be interesting moving forward. Nothing wrong with their backs. We saw James Sicily go ham a few weeks ago, and on their day, can go out and beat Collingwood. So it'll be interesting for both those teams in 2024. Roos got to win. They
Lose the first pick, which
but
is kind of big.
Interesting. We'll talk AFL draft, I suppose, in the coming months. But they go out and win in Blundstone Arena in Hobart, and that's what the Roos tend to do. Nick Larkey, got to talk about Nick Larkey. Kicked 71-24 on the season, so he kicked 71 goals in a team that won 3 games. That is highly impressive. You can imagine, how many would have kicked if he was getting some good service and they were winning games. He was the most accurate of all the key forwards. It's like nearly a 3-to-1 ratio for his goals to behinds. Third in the Coleman. And he's sort of coming into the prime now. So we just spoke about Jai Amos. He's like 24, like sort of coming into that mid to late 20s as a key forward. I think that's probably when you're going to be playing your best footy.
Yep. Who is first in the Coleman?
Well, Kerno has got it, I think, because Tex went mental last night. When we'll talk about that. Is that live? No, so that's before the game. So get it live. If Kerno's kicked 2, then it's his.
I think he got it in the first quarter.
I think, yeah.
They're reporting it. He had it.
Yeah. So we'll run into it now. Eagles played the Crows last night. Eagles farewelling Shannon Hearn, Luke Shuey, Nick Nat didn't play, but has retired. But it was all about the Texan. He booted 9. So Charlie was thinking, geez, I better go out there and kick a couple, make sure I get this Coleman. What a resurgence for the big Texan. Remember a few years ago, like the COVID year, people were like, well, this is his last year. He should retire. He's fucking washed up, the rest of it. Quick 40 old goals in 21 and 22.
It may have been a product of the team. Like they
were pretty bad that year.
Yeah, and of course he's not getting the service, so he as well is not getting the goals. But they've definitely been better. Will not make the finals this year, but they
much like Essendon started really well, and then just sort of mid-season struggles.
Yeah. So, but something to build on for next year.
Definitely better than what it has been for the Crom in the last few years.
Yep. We just skipped over the Suns. Got a new coach, Hardwick.
Probably the biggest news. I was going to run it from the Richmond chat from today, but let's talk about it now. Yeah. So Dimmer, it's not official, but it's official.
No, it's official.
It is official.
So on Monday he was announced as the coach. He did a press conference.
Yep.
They talked all about it.
Yep.
Got his 6-year deal.
Yep.
And I think the main quote out of it was we're going to win a premiership. We're going to win their first premiership. And he reckons 80% of that premiership squad is already there.
We're talking about good young groups.
Yeah.
Fuck. You look at Matt Rowell when he gets going, Anderson, Lukosius, like they've definitely got that good young core. Yep. It would be good for that good young core. Oh, I don't know, maybe a 3-time Norm Smith medalist, and
he wants to get out of Melbourne and go to Queensland. So
Richmond's adamant that Dusty will be playing for the Tigers next season.
I think that's his contract, isn't it? He's got 1 more year.
Yeah, so he would have to break his contract if it was to happen this year. However, Dimmer's signed for 6. So,
but Dusty's also not getting younger.
No, I don't think Dusty's got 6 in him. But does he have 1 in Melbourne and 2 in the Gold Coast left? Who knows? Talk about winding back the clock. He had 33 and a goal today, and through the first 3 quarters was looking like Richmond could have spoiled the party for Port Adelaide. Very, very impressive. It was Trent Cotchin's final game. Monks, if you wouldn't mind chasing some Cochin numbers. What are the other games that we haven't covered? Lions beat the Saints.
Yeah, Lions kind of struggled and at the Gabba as well, so which was a little bit surprising. It was a bit of a scrappy game, but they did get the win.
Kicking, really.
Yeah.
9 goals, 8.
That Danaher kick where he right in front and he missed everything and sprayed it really far right, like a terrible. Worst kick of the season. But the Lions did get the win, and I don't think they lost to the Gabba this season.
Yeah, they didn't confirm.
There you go.
So this is very, very Brisbane Lions, and luckily they'll get that game next week will be at the Gabba against Port Adelaide. So you'd imagine it's all going to be about the prelim and moving forward. This could be the year for Brisbane. This could be the year. You're not convinced, eh?
Well, you just reminded me that a couple of years ago, Port Adelaide went up there to the Gabba and beat the Lions where they thought they were going through to the final. So
it's really the story of the Brisbane Lions over the last 5 years, isn't it? They have looked like on their day they can beat anyone, especially the Gabba can beat anyone in the regular season.
They've got the list. They've got the talent. They just haven't been able to put it all together and win one. And we've been talking about their window, and I'm not sure how much longer it can stay open is where we're at this point. But yeah.
See Devon Robinson last week and his shirt ripped off.
I think everyone saw that.
And his Instagram followers went up like 3 or 4-fold.
He doubled.
Doubled, was it?
Yeah.
A bit of mayo, 3-fold. Yeah. Very, very funny. What did Brian Taylor say? We've got a front-end nude out here and he is loving it. Trent Cotchin, back to we've really there's not much structure here, but that's okay. Going back to the Tigers, so we're going to talk about Cochin's numbers. We're going to talk about Isaac Smith's numbers, and we're going to talk about Buddy's numbers, obviously. So 3-time flag winner, Trent Cotchin. He isn't playing any finals football because Richmond isn't playing any finals football. That's more...
It's interesting, like Richmond and Geelong as examples. A bit of a change in the guard there a little bit in the AFL.
Brownlow medal, 2012 for Cochin. Best and fairest, 11, 12, 14. Multiple All-Australians. Richmond captain for 10 years, including 3 premierships. Incredible career. Unlucky, I think, for him. Unlucky for footy fans that he won't be involved in this year's finals, but has done it all. And enjoy your retirement there, Trent Cotchin. Isaac Smith, the other bloke that I wanted to sort of shout out. They didn't get the Bickies last night. The Dogs winning. It seems like it will be all in vain, but the Dogs did get the win last night. Isaac Smith, how's this? In your last game to have the most disposals, 36 disposals and a goal, 280 games, 4 premierships, 3 with the Hawks, 1 with the Cats. The Norm Smith medalist just last year. And he's from the Riverina, which is essentially our area here. We're Canberra, but, we'll fucking claim the Riverina anyway.
It's getting bigger.
It is. Yeah. It is. So well done on an illustrious career, Isaac Smith, and leaving on the top.
Yeah.
Last one, we have to talk about the Budweiser. Didn't get the win today against the D's, and essentially we're just sort of talking about it because we haven't potted really since the big news, because he retired effective immediately, nearly a month ago. But maybe the last guy ever to kick 1,000 goals, probably the last guy ever, given the modern game.
When he did it, I think we said that it's the way the game's played now, that it's very unlikely that anyone will kick 1,000 goals again, unless someone clones Tom Brady and decides to play AFL and plays for 25 years and has a good average. But
it's Dustin Fletcher, but Tom Brady, and kicks fucking 60 a season. Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, but it's...
Well, there's no current players that's even close.
Yeah,
it's like, well, we're not doing Jack Rewell's numbers, which is a little bit unfortunate, but he kicked 750 odd. There's no one, and Josh Kennedy, retiring last year again in the 700s. Like it's an achievement to kick 700 now. So 1,000, it's unless there's some big change in the game, the way the game
exactly. I think we said
ebbs and flows the game.
In 20, 30 years time, maybe the game changes a little bit. And the big tall up front's the meta, and everyone's kicking at him, clunking marks, and he's scoring goals. Like it's potentially possible, but the way AFL's played now, it's gonna be a big challenge for anyone to be able to do that again.
The Budweiser, I think the call of him kicking 13, it was a regular season game, sure, it's against Kangaroos, but the call when he kicked 13, and he's done it. Sometimes you just sit back and watch the show, whatever the call was, and the goal of the year when he's running down that left wing into the left flank and has 4 or 5 bounces. You shouldn't have a key forward that's got that pace and that's silk with the balls. That's able to do that. Multiple premierships as a Hawk. Never got it done with Sydney. It's maybe the only sort of criticism, although they did make the final in 2 grand finals with Sydney. Look at that. Look at the credentials. 2-time premiership player, 8-time All-Australian, 4-time Coleman medal. You talk about kicking 1,000 goals. Good luck to anyone kicking 4, getting 4 Colemans. Leading into it. 6 times for Hawthorn, 7 times for Sydney as the leading goal kicker. 13 times he kicked the most goals for an AFL club. It's just an illustrious career, and we may never see another one like him. And for us as well, in sort of sandwiched, between our dad's generations of, would have seen Plugger and Chief Dunstall and these guys that just kick goals for fun, and 100-goal season was the norm. To sort of our generation where it's like, oh, buddy, Buddy can do that. Buddy's kicked 100 goals in a season, but no one else is able to actually do that. It is interesting, and he may be the last great key forward that we see. So the finishes with 354 games, 1,066 goals. Buddy, we're a week late. We're a month late on the Esky, but enjoy retirement and thank you for the memories.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
So to sum up the Blues Giants game, the Giants, of course, did win there. The live ladder for them to finish 6 was 45 points. So they didn't get that gap.
Oh,
they had it there.
Jesus, close.
They had it there for a little bit.
They finished 7th.
So they finished 7th.
Wow. So
they were in 6th for a little while, but then...
they would have been very aware of that as well as the margin, and there would have been messages running out, and because now they miss out on a home final. That's big for next week, but huge for the finals, which we'll run through now. So we've already spoken about it, but Thursday night we'll see Collingwood take on Melbourne. Two big Melbourne clubs. One in sort of recent memory, has won a flag and has looked very, very good, and then Collingwood been the form team all year. We'll see 100,000, you'd imagine, at the G Thursday night. Bookies have got the Pies at $1.86, D's at $2. Friday night will be Carlton. I had here before the game, Carlton versus Swans / Dogs. It could have been a plethora of options, but it will be Carlton versus the Swans on Friday night. Monks, have you got the odds there? Because that's only would have just come out.
Yep. Carlton's are favourites at $1.45. Swans at $2.78.
Don't like being that short as a Carlton fan, but anyways.
And the Swans, they could show up. They got a young list.
Did I say Friday? That's Saturday.
Grand final.
That's the Saturday game.
That's
a Saturday game. Friday night is St Kilda and GWS. St Kilda getting the home ground advantage. This is pretty tight for the books.
Yeah. Same odds as Collingwood Melbourne. St Kilda are favourites $1.86 and GWS is $1.98.
Speaking of being short price favourites, Brisbane at home, $1.43 against Port. Oh
dangerous,
boy, that's a Saturday day game there. So
Yep.
finals footy, we don't have long to wait. Very deliberate there from the AFL as well to have 3 primetime games as well. So
It's
good
finals
idea
footy,
that
you
going
have
into
to.
finals footy.
yeah, got to play under lights or Gabba.
Yep.
That'll wrap us up. The next time we talk about AFL, there'll be 6 teams left.
Yeah.
Who do you think wins AFL?
I'm a
Since
Carlton
you're
fan,
so you
so
think it's-
I'm gunning.
So use your brain, though.
I'm gunning for Carlton, obviously. Collingwood, and if you get some future markets up, I imagine Collingwood are the shortest favourites, even with Dacos missing for the foreseeable future. Don't rule out Melbourne, man.
I've actually think, Melbourne, because of all those teams, have the most.
The guys that have done it most recently.
finals
and
experience. They've got
Gorn and Chark and Clary back playing footy and, but probably the best midfield in the comp. You've always worried with Melbourne and not really having the key forward and trying to make Grundy do it this year, but not really being able to.
Grundy said he's not doing that. I'm not playing forward again.
Yeah.
So.
I think watch out for them. I think Port Adelaide on their day. We've spoken ad nauseum about Brisbane.
Yeah. I think the Pies have.
Pies
talent. They
should win it.
Should win.
Watch out for Melbourne.
I think
and
Melbourne's
I'm a Blues fan, so nah. What are the odds say? Collingwood, maybe if they're 350, are they?
350 for Collingwood. Lions are close behind them at 375. Then we've got Brisbane at 450, starts pulling away with Port Adelaide at 6, Carlton at 950, and then GWS, St Kilda and Sydney are all at 26.
It's more open, I think, than we just spoke about the NRL and how really Brisbane or Penrith should win it, barring some kind of sort of fun upset. It's really those big 4 plus with a bit of Carlton's.
Yep. Just throw them in there because we can.
Well, not essentially biased. That's the
they have been pretty good in the back
and that's
half
the
of
5 teams that are single digits from the bookies.
Considering that we were talking about sacking Voss at the
garbage chat, that is.
About, what was that, week 6 or something like that? They've been doing terrible. They really turned it on post that. They started kicking straight for a little while. So
helps a little bit.
That helps.
They are kicking a lot straighter.
All right. We've only got 4 sleeps until finals footy. Let's go.
Love that.
You know what else we don't have many sleeps till? Hit that button. Bah.
He broke his ankles.
Very, very smart in the way that they release TV shows, and we're speaking about quarterback on Netflix, and announced Joe Burr for next year, and just getting the blood into the loins, if you will, for NFL fans, and sort of the drip feed, blood in the loins, the drip feed for the Hard Knocks, and following Rodgers and the Jets and this defense that they've assembled. It's going to be interesting to see how they go. I'm ready to go. We do have 2 weeks, but it's almost like it's the formalities are done.
Preseason's done.
Preseason's
It's
over.
cut week, and then we have our first games. Well, for us, it's Friday next week, but we're under 14 days away, so that's the big thing.
Let's just briefly run through the preseason news. So, running backs, really, and which teams that they've signed with. Dalvin Cook, there was a lot of chat that it could have been Miami. Jets ended up getting him.
Yep.
Thoughts?
I think it's solid kind of pick in there. I guess we'll talk about Hall later if I remember him in the notes. But I think Hall back at training camp and through the preseason hasn't played, of course, but he looks very healthy and is still the elite talent he is. I think Cook's just going to be a nice kind of cover and filler when need. Because I think, I'll just say it now, I think going into the season, they probably don't want Hall having 300, 250 touches.
100%.
Yeah, I think if they can target, 150 odd, and then if Cook can pick up, 50 to 100 himself, that's really what they'll want. And I think
He'll have more than 50.
yeah, I'm saying in that kind of range is what I'm kind of allocating, because I think they'll pass the ball a lot more on this team than they did last year.
In previous years, yes, I'd imagine they will.
Yeah, and I think Michael Carter still has a good place for them on their team as their pass catching back. So I think he's going to have a decent role too. So I think Cook's more cover for Hall, and ease Hall back in, get him through the season, and then he'll probably have 20 touches come playoff time, where they want their best back out there, getting them all the yardage.
What's the salary there? It's not much,
Fuck
is
all.
it?
Yeah.
$1 million.
Base with
$6 million guarantee.
Heaps of
There's incentives.
Incentives to it. 1,250 rush yards. I don't think he's going to get that.
no, not splitting the load.
No. Incredible. We've spoken about it in the last ep that we had, or possibly a few eps before. The running back market is dead at the moment. To have a guy, Dalvin Cook, who was in the NFL top 100 last year, he's in the best 100 players in the NFL.
Yeah.
He's making less than a lot of kickers make. It's not really fair, but at least he's with a team, and with a team that has got a good chance of going reasonably deep.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Zeke went to the Patriots.
Similar role, do you think, like being the number 2 to Ramondre, or do you
big
see Zeke getting maybe more goal line work?
Well, I think he probably steals some of that goal line work. Yeah, definitely. And then see what his role kind of plays into that. Zeke was looking a little bit big coming into camp, but it'll be. I think it was more a reflection on what they thought of Strong. Because I thought Strong was a little bit of a smoky to get some work, but
This is Pierre Strong we're talking about. He's really RB3 now.
Yeah, exactly. He's been downgraded, so they obviously thought they needed to do something in that room. So we'll see what Zeke can do for them.
Jonathan Taylor, the big, hasn't moved just yet, but has requested for a trade.
And they're allowing him to. Because it was denied a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, the GM was like over my dead body kind of thing. And then 2 weeks later, it was like, well.
Yeah. So this week they allowed him, but they gave him a deadline till the 29th. Dolphins are the main ones. It sounds like they're happy to do, because it'll be a trade and deal. So they're happy to pay him as well.
Imagine Jonathan Taylor, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle on the same offense.
Yeah, because they were hot for Cook, and they got a lot of kind of above average dudes on their roster at the moment. So they're targeting him heavily. I think that's probably the most likely spot if he gets traded. And I think that makes sense because I'm pretty sure Kareem Hunt will go to the Colts as a replacement.
How good is this search? You just search for Jonathan Taylor. Dennis Schroeder comes up. Thanks. We know that the Boomers just lost to Germany. Thank you.
Other news, Josh Jacobs re-signed today.
It's official, yeah.
Yeah, 1 year deal for $12 million. Don't think that was his tag. I think I can't because it wasn't reported as signing his franchise tag. It was reported as a 1-year contract.
But how about making 12 mil as a running back?
Yeah.
Everyone else is, taking these $1 million offers.
Well, that's more than Barkley because Barkley got 10.6.
Yep.
No, he got 11 point something because
Yep.
he got the $1 million bump over the
That's
tag.
right.
So, but yeah, they're again on 1-year deals though. They'll all be going back through free agency next year.
Oh, it's wild.
So yeah. And Chris Jones was interesting. He says he's not coming back till week 8.
I did see that.
So yeah, he's still holding out and hasn't been anywhere near.
And
the
he's
club.
already very highly paid.
But yes, yeah, he got his deal a couple of years ago. But the league moves quickly, and
Does,
he's
it
now,
does.
I guess, technically underpaid at his position. So.
And arguably the best defensive lineman in the comp last year.
Yeah. So
Bosa says high.
yeah,
But
looking to cash in.
100%, and they probably do need to sort that out pretty quick. Yeah. You always see this, don't you, on a team full of superstars. They have 3 guys that were in the NFL top 10, obviously, with Kels and Mahomes, and it starts being a lot of mouths to feed. And we saw
It's the reason for the salary cap.
salary cap. That's the reason for Brady taking pay cuts to allow players to stay around and actually earn a bit of money.
Look at Rodgers. He took a 35 mil pay cut, added I think an extra year and moved his salary and managed to get his cap number down significantly so they could sign dudes if needed. Dalvin Cook being one of those. So I think they're doing good.
That's the big stories in terms of player movements and holdouts through the preseason. We're only just going to cover those ones because we're having a really big fantasy focus here in terms of looking at the best players, who to target, who to avoid in your upcoming fantasy drafts. If you've already drafted, it's too early, guys. It's too early.
Preseason are on the end of the day, bro. And
I will pay if you're drafting right now as we speak. I'll allow it. I will allow it. But this is the draft week, boys, for fantasy football. Really hard to explain to the wife the other day. She was asking about NFL drafts. I said, it's in April. And can you do something next weekend? No, I can't. It's the NFL draft. And she's like, I thought you said it's in April. I said, no, baby. It's the important one.
The most important
for
draft.
For nerds all around the world, for football nerds, is next weekend, the fantasy draft. I've got
perfect timing.
Number 1 pick. I've got the wooden
Well
spoon.
deserved.
I'm going to get slapped in the ass. It's the big week is next weekend.
Agree.
The way that we have done this is we're going the big offensive positions. Sorry, defenses and kickers, but no love. We're going to go quarterbacks into running backs, into receivers, into tight ends. I've done the write-up here for the quarterbacks. I've had 3 listed as elite. Patrick Mahomes, he's number 1 quarterback pretty much everywhere in terms of ADP. MVP, Super Bowl champ, arguably the most talented person to ever step foot on a football field. Problem is, you may have to pick him in the first round if you want Patrick Mahomes. Boys, what's your thoughts in terms of tactics? I don't know if first round quarterback is the best way to go. Maybe if you're on the in a snake draft and you've got sort of the 10, 11 or the 9 and the 12, maybe you can be thinking about it. But it's in a position that's very deep.
Yeah, there's
it's
too many
very early,
better
isn't
options. And considering if you're playing, it's still 10 or a 12-team league, that means that even if you pick the last quarterback, you'll still be picking the 10th or 12th best quarterback in the draft. I'm pretty sure I picked the last starting quarterback last year. And it was Jalen Hurts in the 9th round. So
You come pretty good there.
Yeah, so
we're in a keeper league.
yeah. So I think you can definitely wait on quarterbacks, and there's plenty of good talent. Let's talk about Jalen Hurts. You could target him maybe as a 3rd round. You get your starting wide receivers or an RB wide receiver, to kick you off. I think going QBs and in round 1 is a recipe for getting the wooden spoon. So.
I think, we play fantasy football for fun. If you're a Chiefs nut and have, you're on that turn and you want to have...
You'd be picking Kels in the first round.
Well, we'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that when we talk about tight ends.
Yeah, well, I think that's what you say. If you're in that snake draft type situation and you've already got some good keepers,
maybe you do it.
Then you pair him up with Kels in the first, 2nd round or 2nd, 3rd round.
But there's just so many good options in the mid.
It depends on your keepers and stuff. Yeah.
It's it's quarterbacks. Everyone scores well. You can go no quarterback and just
you pick Kirk Cousins,
stream someone, and
still do good.
We're talking about Netflix show and quarterback. We're talking about my wife before.
Yeah.
Her favourite NFL player now, Kirk Cousins.
Have you seen their script writing ad? Big Kirko, like let's go.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
Get the
Let's go.
handlebar moustache.
You like that? You like that, baby? The chain and everything.
So what?
Captain Kirk.
So into who's your other eights?
Elites, I've got Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. So
Yep.
Allen and Hurts now, we're sort of looking back into the second round. So you've already gone for your elite RB or your elite receiver. Then if you wanted to start being bullish on a quarterback, maybe you start thinking here, Allen or Hurts. Obviously, the best running quarterbacks in the NFL that aren't named Lamar Jackson, who we'll get to in a second. Jalen Hurts, 13 rushing touchdowns last year. Be hard to back that up again. We could see a regression there. His passing numbers could improve.
Yes, that's the other thing.
So what it's hard to rush for 13 touchdowns as a quarterback. It helps when you squat fucking 600 pounds.
Yeah.
But,
and you've got the best offensive line in the league.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So say he rushes for 10 touchdowns and throws a few more.
Well, yeah.
You're set.
Still breaking about even. So I like Hurts. I still just don't love quarterbacks. Probably around 3 and
going
earlier.
early?
Yeah. And considering you just mentioned, Lamar Jackson's maybe there more of a 4th or 5th. And if you really want to take a little bit more risk, you got Justin Fields there, who had a leap back after the year, and he's been some chat about him being in the MVP conversation, which I think is probably a great extravagance. Like I don't think he's quite there at this stage, like as a passer to be the MVP, but he's definitely developing, and he's more in that middle pack. I think that's a better kind of target, especially in fantasy world.
Well, here I've got these middle quarterbacks. So elite is these guys are going to score week in, week out. If they don't get hurt, they're going to be top 5, top 6 quarterbacks. The trade-off is you're giving up some elite running back or receiver talent. These guys, maybe, if you're a bit more cautious and want a very good quarterback, I've got Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Justin Fields. Fields probably should be in this category if we're just talking about regular football. Not yet, at least. Not yet, in his third season. He's still developing as a passer, hasn't been on a great offense over the last few years. But fantasy-wise, 1,140-odd rush yards last year and 8 rushing touchdowns. To take him in the 5th round, he could be better this year.
Yep.
So, like you were saying, I think...
And they've got him more
reasonable to take a punt on
weapons.
him.
So they've got him more weapons there, so he's either primed for a big year, which is just see if he can capitalise.
Running quarterbacks, none better than Lamar Jackson. He was hurt last year, so there's risk, obviously, when injuries are associated. But we're also talking about a league MVP and maybe the fastest. I nearly said running back. That was a Freudian slip. Maybe the fastest quarterback of all time. The ceiling could be huge. We could be looking at top 2 fantasy quarterback if Lamar stays healthy.
Yeah, definitely. And again, they've gone away. They've got him some extra talent to pass to help with. Dobbins is hopefully back healthy. So, yeah, it could be Lamar Jackson season. And they paid the man, so I think he's happy. So
he might be the fastest ever. He's the highest paid quarterback ever if he sees out the contract. Then 2 very different quarterbacks, and both coming off different seasons. So Joey Burrow, very, very solid last year. There's no reason why Cincinnati doesn't win their division and go deep. Obviously, playoffs doesn't matter, but a team that wins and plays well, and Joey Burrow throws for 3 or 4 touchdowns week in, week out. Very solid option there. Justin Herbert
he just doesn't give you anything with the legs.
Nothing with the legs.
I think the main that funny stat was Mac Jones had more rush yards than him last season. So yeah, but having said that, he can throw bulk touchdowns.
Big time. A guy coming off a different season, Justin Herbert. Pretty down year last year. I think he finished as quarterback 11, which he's better than that. Still an elite talent. He didn't have his receivers healthy for a lot of last year. Reasonable target in the 5th round.
Yep.
I've got one guy here listed as a solid pick. I think Trevor Lawrence, again, will be better this year. In his sophomore year last year, he actually looked like the franchise quarterback. He looked like the number 1 overall pick after a very shaky rookie season. And if you want to go Trevor over the other guys I've listed as solid in Tua or Dak or Cousins. He rushed for 5 touchdowns. He gives you a little bit with the legs that these other 3 don't really give you.
And again, went up and got some more weapons for him. So,
That offense will be good this year.
I agree.
Could be anything. We're talking low floor. We're talking high ceiling. And that's just for the massage table. You're talking about Deshaun Watson here, okay? He looked, let's be honest, he looked ordinary in his 6 games for Cleveland last year.
Yeah, he was very rusty.
Very, very rusty. He's going to have a full season at it this year.
He's looked way better in preseason as well.
He really could be anything. Cleveland could be anything. This is a risk pick.
Yep.
This is could be top 3 quarterback, could be not in the top 15.
Yep.
So a risk pick. Then some question marks. We're starting to look at more deeper leagues, 12-team league, 16-team league. I've got Rodgers, got the Green Bay hat on. I don't hate the man, go and do your thing. He got treated like shit by all accounts in his last few years at Green Bay. Looking good on Hard Knocks. Look like he's gelling. He's going to have Garrett Wilson, who could be, an elite talent this year. But it is a new system, and he's old, and he looked old last year. So caution.
Yeah, it's not a super different system because, of course, he's got Nathaniel Hackett over there. But
he's old, OC.
Yeah, but it's you're right. He did look old, but we'll see whether better receiving talent is probably the big one. Whether that helps, and he's got a plethora of good running backs there. Yeah, time will tell on whether Rodgers can be Rodgers of old.
Then I've got 2 guys who coming off really good years, especially fantasy-wise. Geno Smith was quarterback 5. I think Danny Jones was quarterback 9 or 10.
Yep. He ran a lot.
Last year. Well, Danny Jones had comparable numbers to Josh Allen running last year. 708 rush yards, 7 touchdowns.
He just can't throw the ball.
And can he do that again? We're talking about emulating, and we were talking about Jalen Hurts before.
Yeah.
I think Hurts is unlikely to have 13 rushing touchdowns, but he'll be fine in terms of rushing. I highly doubt that Daniel Jones has the same effect with his leg this year.
Yeah.
Having said that, they've got a couple of weapons for him. They've got Darren Waller. His receiving crew doesn't look crash hot, so he might need to do a bit with his legs.
I think, is it Jalen Hyatt, the rookie wide receiver?
Yep.
I think he's kind of perfect fit for that team because he's a speedster, deep threat. So, take the top off and Daniel can run underneath if he needs to. So, if that's the game plan, if Waller's not open, pull it down and run with it. He's not a bad pick there.
And Geno's I highly doubt he'd be quarterback 5, but good on him. Unbelievable Cinderella story.
Yeah. And they've got him more wide receiver talent as well.
Yeah.
With Smith and Jigborough too. So
JSN, they could be looking like a reasonable offensive unit. Yeah. And then outside of those names, if you're drafting anyone else, can't imagine. It must be a really deep league.
Yeah. Well, the one that I think that you missed, the biggest risk of the all, but maybe the biggest reward, Anthony Richardson.
I like it. He could be running for 800 yards this year
or more. He's an absolute unit. I've actually been really impressed. Yeah, we knew his arm strength, but it's an absolute cannon. I don't think the Colts will be any good this year, especially if they trade away JT. But if they do trade away JT, he's the offense. So, and they've named him starting QB1. If he plays a full year, I can see him doing 1,000 yards rushing and maybe 3,000 passing. So.
I don't reckon he passes for 3,000.
I think he could go close.
If he puts up those numbers, that's real good. Yeah. His ADP is 15, so right between Geno and Aaron Rodgers. Now, if you're in some kind of keeping league or dynasty or anything like that,
again, that's
a different story. Anthony Richardson, go.
Yeah, he could be 10th round or later, so you definitely can take a risk on him there.
Jared Goff, just while we're at it. High-powered offense this year. The Lions are the shortest to win the NFC North.
Yeah, and you even talk about Matthew Stafford if he's healthy and plays a full season with Cooper Kupp. Like, there's plenty of options in the QB room for starting QBs that as long as they play the whole year.
It feels to me that the summation is Mahomes, Allen, Hurts. If you've got to take them early, beware because you're giving up a big talent. Yes. It's very deep. If you want to just go, somewhere in the 5th round, for example, and get a Burrow or a Jackson or a Fields, you're doing fine. And then if you're really leaving it late, there starts to become a few question marks. Deshaun Watson could be anything. Keeper league, you're smashing Anthony Richardson.
Yep.
Into the running backs?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think, like the NFL, you should be devaluing running backs. Get away. And it's actually quite interesting because I went through the wide receivers today, and the way I kind of went through them and was kind of looking at the groupings. I think and I'll talk about the wide receivers in a minute, but the top 20 wide receivers, you could pick them and you've got no issues. Whereas I think you're maybe missing out on those really good guys if you're picking the running backs. But I think there's more options, say, in the middle of the draft for running backs than there has in recent years because of the committee systems. Whereas I think when you get into the back end and, middle to back end of the wide receiver market, you're kind of missing out because you're now into, the wide receiver 3s and 4s, and you kind of probably wanted a 1 and 2 earlier. Whereas I think you can get a good committee guy that catches passes and get enough out of it. So I think structuring it as, you focus on getting 2 RBs that you're happy with and then getting heaps of wide receivers is probably where I think fantasy's going at the moment. It's, that's the way the league wants to go. They want to pass and throw touchdowns. So having said that, my big avoiding list at the moment, I've got McCaffrey probably because a lot of people are picking 1, and on my previous statement, I think you should be picking Jefferson 1, take the wide receivers. I'm interested in how the 49ers team makeup is going to be put together. Do have a lot of mouths to feed. They did split a lot of work with Mitchell when he's healthy. Also big question mark. So that's my kind of reasons for avoiding McCaffrey. We're talking about Jonathan Taylor, why you'd be avoiding him at the moment. Just uncertainty. If he gets traded to the Finns, I think he can start bringing him back into that conversation because I think he's got a huge role there.
And with CMC, when you say avoid, he's top 3 in most projections. Yeah. So say you've got pick 6 and CMC
or more towards the back of the first, and you're still
board,
there.
You're happy.
Yeah,
there.
and if there's been a run on wide receivers, and you're looking at a guy kind of there that you're not really that comfortable with. Then that's the pick. But I think is
in terms of avoid, if you've got the pick 1 in your draft, you're going Jefferson.
Yeah, I'm going wide receiver all day, all day of the week. Because I think that's it depends. It depends on the drafts. I think that I feel like there's going to be more run on wide receivers, especially for the first and second round, which might slide the running backs down all completely. But every draft's a little bit different. Robinson. Fading because I think his ADP is just way too high for a rookie running back.
What is his ADP?
You look at where CEH,
a few years
ago, kind of same sort of hype and hit that rookie wall. The big issue with Robinson is they have so much mouths to feed in that running game over there at the moment that it's going to be a challenge. Like I don't think as first round you're getting a 1,200 rusher investment. Guaranteed.
No, not guaranteed. No.
Yeah. So, because, Algier got 1,000, over 1,000 last year. Still have Patterson there. I think, they're going to eat into his workload a little bit. So I just don't think he'll get to that kind of level.
His ADP is running back 4. So overall, that's like pick 6, pick 7.
Yeah. And again,
you think that's too early?
Yeah. For a rookie running back, yes. And where the wide receivers are picking those guys instead. I feel like Saquon, I had him as a void at the moment, again, because you have to pick him really early. He has signed. He does play really well for the Giants, had played really well last year. I just feel at this stage there might be a regression. I feel like that team wants to go more Daniel Jones, less Saquon, with the way the media's kind of played out. And, I think you'd be fine picking him in the first round. I'm just saying I'm avoiding him at the moment. Again, targeting wide receivers.
You like a Derrick Henry or a Tony Pollard over a Saquon, which rolls us into...
I'm not sure about Henry overall. I'm not sure if I put a note in there about Henry.
Especially PPR.
Yeah.
That's what, Saquon's sort of that.
Yeah, I feel like what I've got now is, if you're picking early... but you're kind of picking end of first round, start of second, is where I'm thinking about these kind of running backs. I think Eckler is a great pick there. Do think he's going to have a touchdown regression. I don't think they can keep up that pace for touchdowns.
Yeah, he had 18 touchdowns last year, so you'd be surprised. He also had 107 receptions.
Yes.
So, again, you'd think could regress. But when we talk about regressions, he was fantasy running back number 1 last year. Yes. He could regress to being like 3.
Yeah. Or he could still be one again.
He could be 1 again.
But also not score as many points as he did last year. I just think that the offense they're trying to change the way they play. And having healthy receivers will eliminate a lot of those check downs. I think he's in for a regression, but I still think he's going to get his. I've been actually really interested with Joshua Kelly there. He's been playing really well in the preseason. Whether he'll start eating into his workload a little bit with Eckler, talking about contract and how teams like to. I wonder if he's going to get Melvin Gordon. Is what I'm at, where he doesn't play as well or holds out a little bit, and then the new young guy comes in, takes his spot, and then away he goes. So.
Off the top of your head, what's the size difference between?
Massive.
Yeah, so Kelly's quite
more traditional
size.
As my understanding.
5'11", 212, so a little bit bigger than Eckler. So when we think of Eckler, obviously in PPR, an absolute stud because he catches so many football. And he's bigger. It's not night and day. But yeah, when we think
it's more an age thing,
and goal line work, and
like Eckler's what's that? Is that
28?
So yeah,
and we see running backs.
That's old for running backs.
Well, that's actually the drop-off age.
Yes,
is 28, 29 for running backs. So he's right on the cusp there.
So you said Derrick Henry before. He's 28. I think you're probably fine picking Derrick Henry, early second, late first, if he's there. You still got a question is like, when's the workload going to catch up with him? Spears, the rookies, looks really good. And I think he's, again, an excellent handcuff there for Henry. Of course, I love Nick Chubb. Always going to be a monster there. I think with Hurts gone, I think he's in for a monster kind of role. Hunt gone, in for a monster role, but I don't think he picks up, say, all the receptions that Hunt was getting. I think they want Ford to kind of fill that role, but whether that happens or not, because Ford's been dealing with hamstring all preseason.
Nick Chubb had 27 receptions last year, so if you're in a PPR league, that's something to consider. Yeah. You also have to think he had 12 rushing touchdowns and 1,500 rushing yards. In terms of pure runners, possibly the best in the NFL.
Well, him and Henry are kind of at that spot. And then I guess that gets to Josh Jacobs. And I said my notes, it depends on the team. Maybe avoid until you know where he's playing. He's playing for the Raiders. They've got Jimmy G. They're going to hand the ball off a fuckload. So I expect a big workload for him as well. Again, I think he's in that nice spot with these kind of guys around that late first, early second.
He was running back 3 in fantasy football last year, and I think 12 on the top 100. So an absolute
leading rusher, of course,
elite year for Josh Jacobs last year. He had leading rusher 1,653 rush yards.
So then those early rounds, we're talking like 2, 3, 4 kind of space. At the moment, I'm avoiding Hall just because of the injury. Like he's actually looked really. I said it before. He looked really good in training camp. Again. Dalvin Cook's there, so I think that's actually affected his ADP a little bit. If he's sliding, then pick him because he's back into the valley kind of territory. But I wouldn't take him super early. I'd let him slide a little bit.
What is the ADP for Breece Hall at the moment?
I think he dropped 2 rounds.
That's a great question.
What I've seen.
16.
16, running back 16.
Everything seems to be frozen.
So seems to be like reasonable. I would think at 16, you wouldn't want to go much. Like he's around Jahmyr Gibbs, Kenneth Walker, Miles Sanders.
Yeah, but if you go overall, can you give me where that is in
terms of rounds?
Overall.
Just give me what his number
probably
is.
Probably 4th round, I would think there.
Yeah, if he's in the 40s, 4th round, that's probably doable.
Oh, that's not the right Hall.
You search for Hall, and you got Terrace Marshall, 225 receiver for Carolina. Search for Breece, you'll have better. There you go.
Pick 52.
5th round.
Yeah, 6th round. But yes, that's he slid a little bit already because of Dalvin Cook, and that's probably great value at that kind of spot if he's getting down there, because I think he will still have his resurgence, and like I said, I think he's going to get probably less touches overall, but I think he can still be dynamic with them.
Also, any keeper leagues, the bloke's 22, elite talent. So if you're in a league where you can keep, that changes things a little bit. You want to go a little bit earlier.
Yeah. Aaron Jones, I just have concerns about the Packers team at the moment and what kind of his role is. Again, 28, hitting that number.
Right on that age.
Yeah. I feel like his ADP, again, overall is still a little bit higher. So if he slides, then I'd consider him. But at the moment, I'd be avoiding him because, again, I think there's a couple more options better in and around where he is. And Travis Etienne was the other one. I'm kind of 50-50 on him. He hasn't played much preseason, which is good. Means he's the number one guy. Tank, though, is the big concern, who's played a lot of preseason and been really good. You know, has that kind of size, and he's got the name, of course. He's gonna. Will he steal goal line attempts? Looking likely. So just how much of his impact will be on Travis. So I've kind of 50-50 at the moment, and it might depend on what kind of round he's falling into in the draft for me to pick him.
Of all the mid-round rookies, the hype around Tank Bigsby might be the highest.
Yep.
So again, Travis Etienne, maybe caution. Aaron Jones, I'm not sure. I am a Packers fan, but here's the argument for Aaron Jones. They lose Aaron Rodgers. They're going to pass the ball less with Jordan Love under centre.
Maybe. That's kind of good. I don't know what they're going to do in that.
You would think. You would also think the offense probably isn't going to be quite as good, and it struggled last year. Yes. And goal line wise, he caught a few touchdowns. I think he rushed for like 3 touchdowns last year.
Yeah. And you've got, of course, AJ Dillon.
Still the Quadzilla goal line work. So
my concern is more that, what's his role going to be in that team, what that team's going to be like. It'll be, kind of interesting. And I feel like there's probably better targets in that kind of space. And those, the two I've got there is Mixon and Gibbs. I think Mixon's kind of clear-cut. He's RB1. No one's really been challenging him in this preseason to try and replace P. Ryan, who went to Denver. So, I think Mixon's in for a huge role there, a massive role. So I'd be all over Mixon.
He's running back 10. Yeah. I think that's value. I'm going to agree with you on that one. I think he's being undervalued.
Yeah. My question,
he's going to be in a good offense.
Yeah. Okay. My question though for him is he's another one of those running backs that got a 1-year deal, and they might potentially try to move him. So you don't know what it is long term, but at the moment he's going to be with the Bengals, and they're going to stick by him. I think there hasn't been really too many challenges to him. I do really love Chase Brown. I have him in my rookie section. I think he's an elite talent. He's had a really average preseason, but I think he can steal some work as that P. Ryan replacement, get in on third down, catch a couple passes, and see whether he can start to take over Mixon's role, and maybe that makes Mixon expendable. But for start of this season, I don't think that's the case. I think Mixon's got that locked up, and it might be unlikely the rookie takes it this year. Maybe that's a next year problem.
Jameer Gibbs, you reckon of the high, first round rookies, you reckon maybe preferencing Gibbs even compared to Bijan? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, because I think he's in a better spot, like for picking value-wise, and where you could target him, and then the role he's probably going to have in that team. So he's not going to replace Jamal Williams, who's gone to New Orleans to go over there for the Saints. I think, who is it? It's Montgomery that's there?
David Montgomery coming from Chicago. DeAndre Swift goes to Philadelphia.
Yeah, so I feel like he's going to fill in that Swift role more. And hopefully be a healthier version of that.
Well, and that's my concern, is that Swift was really highly touted as a running back, especially in fantasy terms, because of his ball catching ability. Does Gibbs fizzle in the way that Swift sort of fizzled? Well, Swift was handy, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing. So, you probably don't say Gibbs is going to be Swift. You maybe want it the other way around, Swift dealt with concussions and had some issues with that. Whereas I think, Gibbs hasn't had any of that kind of concerns. If he stays healthy, those games where Swift was elite, that's the potential you could be getting with Gibbs on a more regular basis. Because I don't think as well that Montgomery is going to get the same amount of goal line work that, say, Williams did in last season and get all those touchdowns.
I think he rushed for 18 touchdowns, didn't he, last year?
Yeah, but that's also a product of Swift missing a lot of games. So I feel like, again, great value there. I think he's going to fit perfectly. He's been excellent through preseason, all the training camp stuff, and he looks like electric with the ball in his hands. I think with the way the offense, the way they're going to play, he's going to catch a lot of passes and blow people out of the water.
5'9", 200-pound running back who ran a 4.36.
Yep.
So, like you say, goal line work, yeah, maybe Montgomery. Catching 50, 60, 70 balls, definitely not out of the realm of possibility for Jameer Gibbs.
Yep. I think he could still be a 1,000-yard rusher as well. Like maybe he just ticks over it, but I think he'll score some on the ground, but I think he'll catch a lot of balls, which is the value there.
Into the middle of the pack running backs. You're not a big fan of the KC backfield?
Yeah, just not loving it at the moment because Pacheco's coming back from the injury, hasn't been training too much, and not sure what long-term, they're going to plan to do there. Edwards-Halaire's kind of there and kind of in and out and not sure on that. And then I McKinley the most out of a lot of them for that reason. He kind of fits that
McKinnon.
That offensive style last year. I think he catched over 50 balls and
scored a bunch of receiving touchdowns.
It's like, I think it kind of fits, what they want to do where, 3 wide receivers, have Kels in there and then have the running back stand next to the quarterback. Yeah, I think he'll get a lot of touches and in the late rounds, like deep in the late rounds. I think he's got a lot of value there. I would avoid most of the KC backfield except for Jarek late in the rounds.
That's it. I mean, KC's obviously pass first offense, and if they're running, if they're running, Mahomes is just as well just a chance of running the ball as anyone else. So,
McKinnon's receiving stats last year: 56 catches, 512 yards, 9 touchdowns, the most amongst running backs.
Yeah. So, you probably think regression a little bit, but I think there's just a role for him in that offense that they will be very good. So I'm kind of 50-50 on the Rams backfield. Well, I'm 50-50 on Cam Akers and Alex Madison at the moment. Whether Madison can replace Dalvin Cook, he's not the elite kind of specimen that Dalvin Cook is, but he's been pretty good at filling in for him. He's going to have a role in that team. They're treating him as RB1. I'm just, again, 50-50 because when you're picking him, are you getting Dalvin Cook kind of numbers or probably not, and that's why he's going middle of the pack.
I don't think you are getting Dalvin Cook, and I think the proof's been in the pudding over the last few years when Cook's been out and it's all been, smash Madison. He's good, like he's okay, but he's not Dalvin Cook.
No. And Cam Akers, I'm just not sure of what he means for that team because he's in and out, but he had an elite back half of the season last year when they kind of committed to him. They really haven't got much options behind him. He hasn't played much the Rams don't play starters in preseason. He's a starter, so he hasn't been playing, so that's a good sign, I guess. I think it might depend a little bit on how healthy that Rams team is, but if it's back to a healthy team that won a Super Bowl 2 years ago, then I think could be a good value, but he's kind of 50-50. I'm toss-up there at the moment with Cam Akers.
And then picking, you've got?
I think and this is what I was saying, I think the middle kind of section here is great value. You've got James Conner, Javonte Williams, Alvin Kamara, Antonio Gibson. And why do you target all those guys? Because they're all going to catch a fuckload of balls. So I think Kamara's got these 3-game suspension, which realistically is nothing. So if you can get Kamara in the middle of the pack there, he really doesn't have much competition there. I'm not sure Williams is going to steal that much ball from him anyway.
Not much receiving, at least. Maybe a few goal line.
Yeah. Kamara, they've got Derek Carr, there as the quarterback. I think Kamara's going to get heaps of work. I think Gibson kind of fitting in to the McKinnon role there because they've got, Eric Bellamy? No, it's not a Bellamy. They've got the Washington Commanders OC is the Chiefs.
Eric Bieniemy.
Bieniemy, yeah. So Eric Bieniemy is there, and I feel like Gibson can fill in that role. James Conner's got no one behind him. He catches a bunch of balls as long as he stays healthy. And Javonte Williams, he does have P-Ryan behind him, but he looked pretty good in preseason, so I'm a bit confident on that. And then I'm kind of back on 50-50 on White, Rashad White there from Tampa Bay. He did catch 50 balls last year, which is a really good stat. But then you got to remember he couldn't outplay Fournette. He got benched a lot. He has been made RB1, but I'm just not sure if he has the talent to take it to the next level and actually have all the talent. So.
He's the riskiest. Sorry,
Yeah.
Marcus, he's the riskiest out of all of them, but I think the ceiling is quite high for Rashad. You gonna say?
I'm even going to probably foreshadowing wide receivers. I'd probably be avoiding or picking late rounds for most Tampa Bay Bucks. That offense with quarterback.
I've said the same thing when we get to wide receivers.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's it. Exactly. I don't think they're going to be as an explosive offense, not as a productive offense this season.
Mm-hmm. And my sleepers have changed a little bit because they got blown out of the water.
Two of those teams have changed a fair bit.
Well, three of them in total. So I got James Cook and Damien Harris. Harris has been hurt and hasn't played at all in the preseason, but I think he's got a pretty good role there. It looks like James Cook at this stage will be RB1 for them and will get a lot of balls and play in a very similar, they'll go 3-4 wide regularly over there, the Bills, and he'll be the one running back in there. But I feel like Harris, again, if he can stay healthy, can recapture some form from 2 years ago and be a dominant rusher, which is kind of what Bills have needed. So it'll be interesting. So I kind of like them for different reasons, but they're going late enough that you can probably take a flyer on them. I had Michael Carter there, if no Dalvin Cook, but Dalvin Cook there kind of makes it a bit hard. I'd be interested probably wouldn't draft him, and I don't think anyone probably will too much, but you could watch and see what his role is. He could still have a third down running back, pass catching kind of role, and see how he fits in there, especially if Hall starts late and Cooks doesn't have enough. He might have some value there. Then I had Zamir White and Pierre Strong, and both of those have kind of been blown out of the water because White would have been RB1 with no Jacobs, but Jacobs is back. And Strong, there was some kind of inkling there with, Billy B likes to rotate his running backs, whether he could take over that role a little bit, but then they brought Zeke in to kind of fill in there. So I think he's kind of fallen out there. And I think I covered the rooks that I liked, Tank, Chase Brown's in there. The others really haven't done too much in special teams. Oh, and Spears. Spears is another. If you get Henry, probably pick Spears as your handcuff in the back there.
I think there's a couple that are worth mentioning. I think Zach Charbonnet at Seattle as a handcuff to Kenny Walker, and by his own merits, he was the third running back taken in this group. Could definitely do a bit. And Chicago have got Khalil Herbert listed as RB1 at the moment. Roschon Johnson, the fourth rounder, could definitely have a bit of a role there in Chicago.
Agree, but again, hasn't done too much in the preseason.
We're talking late round here, and obviously keeper rounds, keeper leagues change things a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's roll into the wide receivers. You'd think top end, you can't go wrong, although there's a few to just be caution.
Yeah, I agree. I think I looked at the top 20 list and was like, you pick any of these guys and you'd be set. So they're all going to have potentially big years. Of course, if you pick an earlier like Jefferson, Chase, and Hill is kind of those top kind of three guys there. I do have of the 20, the only one that kind of worried me was probably Cup. Again, coming off last season, and he needs Stafford. They're the big things. If he's healthy and he's got Stafford, could be all sorts, and he'd be worth the pick. It just scares me if you're picking him early in the first round based on those two factors at the moment. So, a little bit of worry there, but otherwise I'm pretty all happy with the early wide receivers.
News is Stafford should be good for week one, plagued by elbow and back problems last year. Agreed. A little bit of caution around Cooper. Love Jefferson, love Chase, love Hill. You're going to have to go early, though, with all of them, obviously.
Yep.
What about Devontae? Thoughts?
Which Devontae?
Adams?
Jimmy G. He's still an elite route runner. I'm not too worried. I think he's going to get his and be fine. You've got him there listed as wide receiver 3, maybe.
That's last year's. I think his ADP is slightly lower.
Yeah. So, and I think that's probably a good reflection. He doesn't have his best mate in Derek Carr at the moment, so I'm happy with that. So, I think he's still going to get his. I think he'll still get 1,000 yards and still get a bunch of touchdowns because they really don't have a lot of other options.
Yeah, I agree.
Jimmy G's got to throw to someone, and it's most likely going to be him.
Yep, I think late first round, early second, Devontae's no dramas there. Early rounds?
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, Waddle, Olave, all great going into second. They're all second years, aren't they? All third years.
Waddle's third, Olave, Wilson a second.
Again, young talent, pick him. You got no issues there. I think just don't forget about Devontae Smith. I think he's he's in that offense. He was really good last year, and I think he can take another step. And all on the Eagles to go deep again and probably repeat what they did last year and even be better potentially. So I'm looking for them to take a big leap. The one that does worry me a little bit is probably Keenan Allen. He's getting a bit older. He has had hamstring injuries. He got a little bit of risk there, but when he's healthy and plays, elite. So you got to flip that coin when you're picking him.
I think his ADP is sort of reflecting that as well. Got him as wide receiver 20-ish, whereas the aforementioned all going a little bit earlier.
Yeah. But that's the other rounds.
Middle of the pack, Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, he's been getting all the hype preseason. Caught another touchdown or big pass today. Looking very good and has fit into that offense really well. McLaurin got turf toe at the moment, but he's been looking really good. And Dodson actually has been showing out during preseason.
He's good.
And is it Sam Howell is going to be their QB1, and he's been looking really good during preseason. So if they can keep that form going into the regular season, I think you'd pick either of those two guys in the middle of the pack and you'd be right. I feel the exact same about the Steelers after watching Kenny Pickett being playing. He's had a really good preseason, and I think that's going to be beneficial for Johnson. Johnson struggled. Got no touchdowns last year. He was the first bloke to get 140 targets and 80-plus catches and no touchdowns. So he's he'll regress to the mean.
Of catching a couple.
Yeah. And he's their main target in this offense. I think Pickens will also benefit as well. I think Pickett's going to take a step forward, and Pickens will benefit, and they will the Steelers will be better this year. So I like both those guys as middle round picks that you can target and get a lot of good value out of.
It's wild, isn't it? Those Deontay Johnson numbers. He had more targets last year than Jamar Chase, than AJ Brown, than DK Metcalf, and he caught 0 touchdowns.
Yeah, and most of that was with the rookie. So I think they're going to take a leap this year. They've looked pretty good. The defense is still Steelers' defense. We didn't talk about Harrison and Warren in the running backs.
Yeah, running backs.
I think they're
Harris.
Yeah, I think they're going to go to a bit more of a 50-50 split than it was last year, 70-30. So I think they're going to be very good, old school kind of football, pound the rock, and then they have the two wide receivers on the outside. Because I think they'll do 2 tight end sets a lot with Washington and Freiermuth there as their tight ends. So that's what I think their offense is. So they're going to get heaps of targets, heaps of looks. On stick in the middle pack on the Broncos. Judy's hurt. They think he's going to miss a couple of weeks. I think he'll miss the first month of the season. Hamstring for him, which is Sutton's been the healthiest. Sutton's probably going to be the go-to target. He's probably the one to target here in the middle of rounds. We're going to go Denver wide receiver. I think this will push Dulcich a bit more than Mims will for targets in this offense. Dulcich has kind of not been used predominantly as a tight end much in the preseason. Maybe they're hiding him a little bit.
Where have they been playing him?
Well, he's tight end too, so he isn't the starting tight ends because he doesn't block as much, so he hasn't been seeing the field as much. But I think with these injuries, a lot of the wide receivers, he's going to be called in as kind of a de facto, third wide receiver here. So I think that's going to be elevate him a little bit more. And Mims will probably be wide receiver 2 to start the year with the injuries to everyone else in that squad. I think it helps the tight ends a bit more. They play a lot more 2 tight end sets. So, Sutton, Mims, Dulcich will see a lot of the field. So I think they're the kind of ones I'd be targeting. If Judy is in your draft and he slides 3 or 4 rounds for you because of the injury, then that's valid. Pick him then.
Elijah Moore, what's your thoughts here. He's going to be wide receiver 2 behind Amari Cooper at the Browns, but he's looked pretty good at the Jets. Last year, he got no love. That's why he wanted to leave. But in his rookie year, was really good. He could definitely have a higher ceiling for the Cleveland Browns.
And it's also been interesting how they've been using him in the preseason so far as well. He's been in the backfield a fair bit. He's kind of been all over the place.
Samuel kind of role.
Yeah, he's not as big as Debo is, but there's potential there for getting a lot more ball, a lot more opportunity. So, again, middle of the pack towards the back end of the middle of the pack that we're talking about at the moment. I think he's a good target there.
What's his ADP?
45, so somewhere in the 5th round there.
And then Brendan.
That's wide receiver 45.
Yeah, it's
actually, sorry, yeah.
So
he's
late.
late.
like a late rounder.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's like going in the 10th round kind of thing. So that's a nice kind of little target there. Brandon Ayuk, I think he's the best wide receiver option at the 49ers. We'll probably talk about tight ends later. I'm fading Kittle because I just think they've got too many mouths to feed, and he, with the way Brock Purdy's kind of been playing, won't get as many options. I think he'll end up blocking more than he'll be catching routes, unfortunately. And I think Brendan, he got over 1,000 yards last year and looks really good. And I think he takes, when they have to pass, he's their option. It's not going to Debo. So I think he's definitely a very good option, especially here in the middle rounds. You can get a lot of good value for him.
And you've got a whole wide receiver cores here that you don't like.
Yeah, Buccaneers, Falcons, Pats, Cards, Bears, just avoid. It's either the wide receivers or the quarterback room. Like Buccaneers, they're going to have Baker. You're probably going to get some value out of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. But I just think there's better options elsewhere. So that's why I'm avoiding. Falcons, they're a running team. Rookie quarterback. Drake London.
Drake London's a wide receiver 2 for you.
Yeah, he's probably your only option. But again, I think there's better options. The Pats just don't have – you don't want Juju or Parker. Avoid. Cards. Brown's probably the main one. I think I've put it there. Michael Wilson as well is kind of a bit of a sleeper. He's a rookie. He's going to be their wide receiver number 2. But Kyler's still a while away. And that team's in full tank mode at the moment. So I'd stay away from the Cards. And Bears is probably more a question of, what's Fields going to do for you. DJ Moore is your main pick here. But what we've seen so far is Fields is not really a passer. He's a run first, then pass. So that's last season. If he has the improvement, DJ Moore and his, their connection in preseason so far has looked really good. Again, I just think there's probably better options.
Bears and wide receivers in fantasy definitely don't go hand in hand
in recent memory.
Recent memory. Having said that, in terms of talent, with DJ Moore coming in, and even Chase Claypool and Darnell Mooney, if they can get going,
they have the
definitely
talent,
talented. But I agree, be very cautious with drafting any of those guys.
Yeah. So some of my sleepers at the moment, I think the KC wide receiver room is very, very interesting. Of course, outside of Kels, someone else has to catch the football. I have a feeling that Tony, they're actually going to move him. He's been injured. He hasn't played a lot of games. He's uber talented. But I think they just have so much more depth. They don't really need him, and they can rely on other guys. So I feel like Sky Moore is probably going to be wide receiver 1. That's kind of reflected so far in the preseason. MVS will have a role, but he's their deep threat, so he doesn't really get much volume.
And consistency with MVS is caution.
That's the problem. Whereas I think Sky Moore, he's going to get the volume. He play out of the slot. And then so far, Rice, the rookie, has been getting more looks than Ross, who's technically a rookie, but it's his second year. Was injured last year coming out of Clemson. But Ross is a bigger target. That's the other thing. The other guys are... I think Rice was 6'2", and Moore was more like a 5'11" kind of slot guy, whereas Ross is 6'4", so he's the big dude. So I feel like he could be that big target for Patrick Mahomes. So these guys are all very, very late. We're talking picking them in the last round of your draft. Taking a flyer.
Getting your kicker first.
Exactly, yeah. I would say these are the guys you kind of take flyers on because they're in that offense with Patrick Mahomes and, an injury away, and there'll be starting and having potential lot of balls coming their way. So I think Rice and Ross have been preseason darlings for Kansas City, so they're worth a flyer very late in your drafts.
This is Justin Ross, who is the 6'4" receiver out of Clemson, and Rashee Rice, 6'1" out of Southern Methodist.
Yeah, who was their second round pick. So they've got a role for him. At the moment, with veterans, Moore is the guy getting all the snaps with the ones in preseason. But we'll see what happens when we roll into the season. So I like to target both those guys late because I think they've got value. I mentioned Michael Wilson before. He's a bit of a sleeper because he's not getting drafted again, flyer late in the last round. And I mentioned Jalen Hyatt before. He very much could be QB. Fuck me.
You had it right the first time.
No, wide receiver is what I was going for. I said RB and QB. Wide receiver 1 for the Giants because they really don't have any options. He was their main wide receiver pick. They did pick him really late. He slid a bit because a lot of teams were worried about his route running, but he's an absolute speed demon. Video of him running past Sauce like he was nothing, and the ball was underthrown. He would have scored a touchdown. There's you can see the talent that they potentially have there. I think Darren Waller's going to get all the ball of the Giants this year, but again, he's a guy that you maybe take a flyer late, that maybe he comes on as a rookie and you get some value out of him. And then Romeo Dobbs. We've talked about the Packers. We don't know what that offense is going to be, but from snap wise, target wise, so far for Green Bay through preseason, Dobbs has been getting all the ball. So, Watson's the big deep threat, big red zone target. But outside of that, who's going to get the ball? And it looks like it's going to be Dobbs.
Yeah, volume, consistency. Romeo Dobbs could be a good one late round.
Yeah, and then for the Rooks. I don't think it matters. Pick one of them. You can't go wrong. It's kind of changed. I think Flowers has got a perfect situation with OBJ's probably too old and he's going to overtake Bateman. He's going to get all the ball. Smith and Jigba is...
Flowers is my favourite.
Yeah. Smith and Jigba is going to get plenty of ball too.
He's wide receiver 3.
He is wide receiver 3, but I think that's kind of the offense they're going to go to this year. He's been electric through preseason. He's going to get a lot of snaps. Johnson's again kind of wide receiver 3. Whether
the Chargers,
whether they move Allen, whether they move Williams. There's been talk about that in the past because they got to pay someone at some point. But he's their future. So, and again, he's looked good deep threat, can get open in the end zone, and then Addison's guaranteed wide receiver 2 at the moment. So, a lot of these rookies, these first round rookies, I think you could pick them where they're going in their ADP, and you get value out of them. So I'm not too worried about it.
I agree. I think the ones that are wearing purple this year smash. I think Flowers could be wide receiver 1 at Baltimore. I think Addison will definitely be 2 in a high-powered offense. And if you're in keeper league, I think JSN or Quentin Johnson is definitely guys to target.
Yep, agree.
Anything to add on receivers?
Any other questions on any receivers? There's a lot. We haven't covered them all.
That's hard, yeah. I, in terms of general strategy,
focusing on the first few rounds.
I'm going wide receiver hard at the start.
And I think that's the way fantasy football's going. Most people playing PP.
It's where the league goes. It's where the league's going as well.
Yep.
It's harder with committee running backs, and nearly every backfield now has some form of committee. The days of AP have kind of died down.
Derrick Henry says, doesn't catch many passes. So, I think in terms of overall strategy, I think you got to go elite wide receivers early. I don't think you can go wrong. And then taking a punt on some of these later round guys, it's definitely the deepest position.
Yep.
Speaking of a position which is notoriously not deep and probably will be the shortest to discuss as we wrap up our NFL fantasy chat. Tight ends, I've done the write-up. There's one god tier, and that's Travis Kelce, and it's him and him alone. He had 101 more PPR points than tight end 2 last year.
He's not a tight end, he's a wide receiver.
TJ Hawkinson, he is God, and that is who he is. However, you'll have to pay godlike prices. If you're happy to use a first-round pick on a tight end, that's what you'll have to do.
Where did he finish overall last year?
That's a good question. Can you chase that up?
Yeah.
He would have been, I want to say, top 20 overall, but 100 more points as a tight end. If you've got a snake draft, non-keeper league, and you use the first overall pick on Travis Kelce, I wouldn't look at you funny. Like I wouldn't look at you funny. That gives you, if you go off last year, you've got a 100-point advantage on the next guy. There's no other position where you can say that.
Yep.
I wouldn't take him first, but I wouldn't look at you funny. He's projected as a mid first rounder. If you get him late first round or second round, that's a steal. That's set it and forget it and don't worry about it.
The risk always with the tight ends is you only need one of them, whereas you need a lot more running backs and wide receivers. Correct. Who are you missing out on?
And in terms of overall strategy, yeah.
But
perhaps.
But he's if you could label him as a wide receiver, then you'd be getting a good return on investment for there.
He finished
eighth. That's crazy. I was thinking.
Sure,
I wanted to say top 10. I was like, no, he wouldn't have been top 10.
Well, that's why he's gone in the first round, is because he was eighth over.
Dude, that's even more. Like he's eighth as a tight end. Where overall, where was Hawkinson? I can see him. 29.
Yep.
29 was Hawkinson. Mm-hmm. That's it's elite levels. Next tier I've said is elite. Sorry, that's God levels. the elite guys.
Sorry, Kelsey dropped a little bit on PPR.
To 12.
Yeah. Okay. But still, there or thereabouts.
Well, that's his
round.
That's his range, though. 8 to 12. That's his range. That's,
every year.
That's perfect.
Set and forget. TJ Hawkinson, 914 yards last year, 6 touchdowns. He was tight end 2. Could definitely get 1,000 yards. If you don't want to, use your first round pick on Travis Kelce, but you want to get something good in, say, third round, Hawkinson's a way to go.
I think all three of these guys are going third round, aren't they?
Mark Andrews last year was tight end 4. Mm-hmm. He actually had a down year. So 2 years ago, it was him and Kels, same sort of level. I think he has a better year this year, and I think
Lamar was hurt last year.
Lamar was hurt. No reason why he can't catch 10 touchdown passes this year. Mm-hmm. George Kittle, you mentioned before, probably the best blocking tight end in fantasy in the NFL. Yeah. However, that doesn't translate to fantasy football, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. You're cautious of George Kittle this year.
Yeah, just because if that team's healthy, they have so many mouths to feed. That's the issue. So, I think he's still going to be viable, but I think you're then worried, if you're picking him in the third round, are you really getting the return, which is probably no.
I think third round's maybe a little too early. If you can get him fourth or fifth, I think play on. You do have to remember that back end of last year, he caught the second most touchdowns out of any tight ends last year. Is on talent wise a top 2 tight end.
Oh yeah, he's an elite talent. There's no doubt about that.
But just fantasy wise, a little bit of caution. Alluded to Darren Waller earlier. Mm-hmm. Hurt last year. Crazy talent. New team. Not a great wide receiving group. I like Darren Waller this year.
Yeah, I think he's going somewhere like round 5, 6 as well, which is just a nice kind of spot for him too. And like you said, there's no wide receivers at the Giants, and all reports are it's been Jones and the Waller show at training camp, to the point they've told Jones to stop throwing it to him and you've got to throw it to someone else because that's all he's doing. So I think come season time, he could be getting 10 targets a game kind of thing. That's the game plan. Can he make it if he's getting 10 targets a game? Can he last the full 17 games will be the question. Haven't been banged up the last few years, but can't doubt the talent.
What about Kyle Pitts, the highest drafted tight end ever? Just hasn't lived up to the expectation. Quarterback play plays into it.
His first year was all right.
And also hurt last year.
Yeah, it was hurt a bit last year. I think that the team dynamic changed completely last year, and I don't think it's going to change too much this year. They run first all day, every day. They might even have 3 running backs on the field at one time. That's how much running they're going to do.
Oh, wishbone. Reasonable options. You're not reaching for any of these guys by any means, but you can have them starting week in, week out. Dallas got it. Only 3 touchdowns. Hurts rushing for so many at the goal line, but hurts him.
I think Dallas missed a fair few games last year as
also well. Missed a few. Frymouth, not as good as his year before, but... And never, he's not one to get you 25 points, but he's quite consistent.
I'm big time fading Firemouth at the moment because they drafted Washington. So he's a big 6'7" tight end who will play a lot because he blocks the shit out of everyone.
And goal line as well.
Yeah, so I think I said it before. I think that's the offensive mode they're going to go. They're going to go heavy stack line with 2 tight ends with the 2 wide receivers. So I feel like that's going to eat into Pat's workload a little bit.
Tyler Higbee, I think his ADP is low. Can you? What's Higbee's even as a tight end? He is tight end.
Tight end
Did
12.
he miss the back
12.
end of the year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit unders on him. He caught 72 balls and missed a few games last year.
Yeah, but you also got to remember Cooper Cup missed a lot of games and he was their number one target. So I think he probably will catch similar sort of numbers. And that team, again, heavily dependent on who plays quarterback for them. So, yeah, I'll take it from there.
Yeah, doesn't seem to get much red zone action with only 3 touchdowns last year.
And that's
as
the that's the problem with this position in general. Guys that aren't named Kels or Kittle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Evan Engram, he caught a lot of balls last year. He was tight end 5 overall.
Yep.
Out of all these reasonable options, I think I like him the best out of all those guys.
And in that offense as well, the Jags, I think, are primed for a big year.
Into a group that I've named sleepers, keepers, and rookies. We spoke about Dulcich before.
Yeah.
Troutman, do you think will be?
He's one.
Will be the tight end one. Yeah. So we're looking.
He blocks and he'll get a lot of game time. But Denver's been playing a heavy two tight end set. And as I said before, with the injuries, I think I was fading Dulcich, but I now kind of feel like he's probably worth picking in the back end of the draft because he's. Definitely he was really good. I think he played 6 games last year. And in those 6, he was like tight end 1 for a lot of them because he was catching a lot of balls because we had no other options. And it looks like a similar thing this year. So I think, in the back end of the draft, he's a solid pick there.
What about Cole Kmet? He caught 7 touchdowns last year. Not a good wide receiver core. Obviously, it's not the same talent as Darren Waller, but maybe a similar situation in that.
He got paid as well recently too.
Yeah.
I just don't know about that team. Again, it's... I think they're going to be very good on the ground. I just don't know if they're going to have the quality and volume you'd want in the passing game for a tight end. Like, is DJ Moore going to soak up all those touchdowns and those volume so he doesn't get too much?
Into the rookies, Dalton Kincaid was the only first rounder. The Bills already had a pretty good tight end in Dawson Knox. He caught 189 yards last year. Where do we see Kincaid? Sorry, I fucked up the stat there. 890 yards, 8 touchdowns was Kincaid's numbers for Utah last year.
Yes.
Dawson Knox
was hurt a lot last
year. Pretty good when he's healthy.
Yeah.
Where do we see Kincaid?
By all accounts, they're going to play him in the slot.
Yeah.
So it's Davison, Diggs, and then Kincaid. They're the options with McKenzie now in Indianapolis, the Colts.
Well, Kincaid's got a higher draft position than Knox does, so
what's his ADP as a tight end total?
Tight end total, 146.
Yeah,
so that's total, and then what's that as tight end?
That's like tight end 16. Sorry,
16.
No, sorry,
Yeah.
So 15.
That's like round 15 at the moment. So
so late round 5.
I think that's in that Bills offense with the way they plan to use him. I think could be a good shout there.
These are also late round and maybe keeper league kind of guys. Sam Laporta, he's going to start for Detroit.
These are kind of the perfect second tight ends. If you didn't get an elite dude, you've picked one of the middle pack guys, and you're worried about his potential. Yeah, pick one of the rookies. Like Laporta, or by all accounts, is going to replace Hawkinson there at the Lions, and he's essentially tight end number 1. He's been rested with the start, like with all the other starters, and I expect him to get a lot of ball because with no Williams for 6 games and Brown's their only option, but he's going to get plenty of balls his way.
Similar, but not quite the same extent with Michael Mayer at Las Vegas. Had the most catches in Notre Dame history.
Yeah, not a lot of great reports there for Michael Mayer out of Raiders land, but I think that's more a product of where the Raiders are at the moment. I don't think he's going to get a lot of options.
Packers use a second rounder on Luke Musgrave. That's beware because they took a tight end with a third round in Tucker Kraft as well, and we're not sure of that offense. Yeah. Luke Schoenmaker, I think, is interesting.
Well on Musgrave, they have now. He's the tight end number 1.
He will be. Yeah, he will be tight end 1.
So they've said that.
Don't get me wrong.
But again, that offense, whether he'll get the volume or not, I don't know.
I think Schoenmaker's maybe more interesting. For now, he's number 2 on their depth chart, but we saw the season 2 years ago that Dalton Schultz had, who's now at Houston. I think Schoenmaker, if you want to have a late round fly, might be worthwhile.
Well, the dude that's in one, Ferguson, as well, has had an excellent camp. And by all accounts, again, another great kind of smoky there that you could be targeting because I think he's got a lot of good value.
Anyone there that I haven't mentioned that you like?
Njoko for Cleveland would be good. The young fella at Tennessee, there's lots of good raps there. They got to throw someone over there at the moment.
It's Chig Okonkwo, isn't it?
With Burks injured for the first couple of games. And then Ivan Smith, if he can beat his talent just because he's in Cincinnati, he's probably the other one.
What injury? So Irv Smith was a Minnesota guy. Can you chase up? He's coming off some nasty injuries. I feel like an Achilles rupture, but I can't.
Yeah, he had a nasty one.
He had a season ender
the year before, and then he came back and they couldn't really get going with the Vikings, and that's why they traded him away. Well, they traded for TJ and took his role. But now with Hayden Hurst at the Panthers, Cincinnati had a role for him. He still has talent, like he's a talented guy. It's just whether he can realise that in the Bengals offense.
What's he had? This is cool. I've never seen this before. Yeah. High ankle sprain.
Yep.
That was last year.
And a meniscus the year before.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's his two big ones. Got the body chart, mate. How good's that?
Yeah. Chance of injury, 50% chance of injury in 2020.
That is the injury risk. So high injury risk, but in terms of,
it's just the offense.
In terms of ceilings, if he stays healthy, good offense.
Yep.
Who knows there for Irv Smith?
Because Hayden Hurst was serviceable there at Bengals for a couple of games, and Smith's got more talent as a tight end than Hurst. But I think it'll depend on what kind of volume he gets there.
I think I'm happy to leave it there, boys.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to leave it there. NFL drafts, fantasy drafts, might be some this weekend. You might have already gone. If you're listening this week and you love the NFL, give that a run, and don't listen to anything that we've said because who knows. It's fun. We like playing fantasy, and if you're got any wits about you, you'll be drafting next weekend. Good luck with your drafts. Yep. It's a fun time. And unlike the fantasy sports that we do here, NRL, AFL, etc., where so much happens before the season, it all doesn't all come down to your draft either in the NFL, but it's kind of important.
Yep,
that's it.
Any final notes there? No.
For the NFL, no.
Happy.
I think we're all good.
Kickers are people too.
Kickers are people.
Just trying to pick them in the second round.
For time's sake, we've left them out.
Yeah.
Who was it Blankenship that went 4 or 5 a year or two ago, and then he got cut? It wasn't Tampa. Who did that?
He was at Indianapolis, wasn't he?
Colts. Yeah, I think he was like a 4th or 5th round pick for them.
Really?
Yeah, and he's just got.
I thought you meant a fantasy pick.
No.
No, he was a draft.
An actual draft.
Yeah, actual draft pick. Yeah,
and just got cut. So that's all you need to know about kickers. I think there was
apparently they're more valuable than running backs.
Yeah, I think there were true, and I think there was 17 teams have kicker battles at the moment. It's preseason.
Yeah.
So as in like have 2 kickers and playing it
duking it out.
Yeah,
one old QB battle for kickers.
That's what you want.
So there'll be a few kickers going on the waiver wire this week after cuts. So some teams might be changing up some kickers.
Yep.
Final round finishes off.
Let's do some final round, boys.
Final round.
UFC 292 was last weekend, and Sugar Sean, he stole the show, and he is a bantamweight champion of the world.
Crazy.
Second round knockout against Aljo. Questionable tactics from Aljo, trying to get into a striking match with an elite striker, and he wore one on his chin, and that was pretty much all she wrote.
A few follow-ups.
Sugar did have to go for a few follow-ups. A few people saying early stoppage. I felt like that was reasonable, wasn't defending himself.
Yeah, and if it went any longer, he was just eating more shots. So
Correct,
I don't think you needed to say any more of that. I think there was a job done at that point.
Quite humble in his reaction as well. He said, look, you got me on the chin. I've got to go back and work at my striking. And that was, in the lead up to it, was that Sugar is a dangerous striker, and that's what we've seen over his meteoric rise in the UFC. Obviously, if it went to ground, as a grappler, you'd fancy Aljo, but it never really got there. The first round was a little boring. I hate to say it.
They were feeling out round.
Definitely feeling each other out, but boring and Sugar Sean shouldn't really go in the same sentence. And I'm remiss to say it really, because he just finishes people, and it's what he says he'll do. He'll put one on your chin and it'll end your night, and that's what he did.
Yeah, I think Sterling was having those conversations about maybe going up and taking on Volk. Because Volk needs some dance partners at this point. But post fight, he said, if Sugar can hit me with that, imagine what Volk's going to do to me. So, which is a great kind of point there. And
very humble, however, very different fighters too. Like Sean O'Malley's 5 inches taller than Volkanovski, and arguably a better striker. I think
volume damage wise, Volk can definitely put it on you too. So, we'll talk about Volk in a minute, I think, when we talk about Holloway. But for Sugar O'Malley, I think it's Chito Vera and probably next, if not Cejudo, if not Emrab, I think is his list. Or the rematch. That's the talk. Do we just run it back with a rematch? And
I'd be more. Aljamain Sterling has got the right to run this back.
But in my opinion, I also feel like if you get knocked out in the second round, you don't really need to run it back. If it'd been a split decision or gut decision kind of 5-round war, then of course do a rematch. But I feel like this, I'd like to see something different. Maybe it's just what I'm at.
Who would you like to see out of those up and comers? Well, they're not up and comers. Out of the rest of the division.
Chito Vera has
a win against Sugar Sean.
That's the main one. Has the win over Sugar Sean. So I think that makes a lot of sense considering he's also pretty high ranked. That's probably the one I think makes the most sense next. Henry Cejudo, I just lost to Aljamain, so I'd probably leave him out. He needs another fight maybe. And I guess Emrab's always there, but then he'd be taking
Marab, isn't it?
Marab. He'd be taking his best mate's kind of spot straight away. So I think it's Cheeto or no one.
I think Cheeto has to be the favourite. I saw an article which I thought was odds, but I can't actually see odds for the next fight. I think Cheeto makes sense. Could be Marab, and I wouldn't raise an eyebrow if they ran it back. Other chances are the Sandman, Corey Sandhagen, or Cejudo.
Yep.
Pretty stacked division at the moment.
Yeah, it is. It's very fun.
Undercard or other fights. There's a title fight, Zhang Wei Li. Defending there. What else have we got? Ian Gary beating Neil Magny.
Yeah,
Cheeto on the same card as well. I think it was very deliberate from the UFC having that with his win against Pedro Munoz. Not the strongest really undercard in terms of big names there, but an elite title fight that was.
Yep. And Chris Weidman was on the undercard as well, and
coming back after breaking his leg 2 years ago.
Yeah, and then got all the leg kicks from Travis.
As you'd expect.
Yep.
But it'd be interesting to see if Weidman's keen to go again.
Mm-hmm. You watched Korean Zombie and Max Holloway last night. It was late, our time, and it was Singapore.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was an excellent fight, and I'm glad I rolled over in bed and put it on the phone to watch it. Because it was Korean Zombie's retirement fight, so he's finishing up now, 36. He'd done everything he could. He actually said, I've done everything I could. I'd want to win a championship, but I just don't think have that capability.
The ship sailed, hasn't it?
Yeah, because he lost his last fight was against Volk. He lost that, and then Holloway as being the number one. If he beats Holloway, he'd be in that conversation then again for Volk. But with the loss, he goes out. It was an interesting fight, a little bit back and forth. Holloway looked like he was landing cleaner, but the power shots were coming from Korean Zombie. But for whatever reason, the third round, Korean Zombie said, "Fuck this, let's go out," and they just started wailing on each other.
that's indicative of these two fighters, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and Holloway was like, I'm game. And, he said it after the fight. It was just like, it was just lucky today it was my right hand that landed. And, hitting with a flush right hand and the zombie face plants. I think Bisman said it best on commentary. There's only one way to kill a zombie, and that's a headshot. So
very good from Bisping there.
Yeah. So Danny goes, retires. Max though, interesting, still number one. Still, I don't think he's been beaten. If you check Max in forever, I think Volk's
the only losses.
Yeah. So do you run it back for a fourth time?
It'll be 4. So
fourth time.
He did lose to Poirier back in 2019.
Was it lightweight? He went up.
That was different divisions. So at featherweight, he's only got 3 losses, and they're all to Alexander Volkanovski.
Yeah. So do we need to see the fourth fight at this point? Like,
it's weird, isn't it? Because Volk.
What else can you
with
do?
Well, I think he should fight Makachev again. I'd be happy to see that.
The problem is Islam's now booked for Oliveira. So that fight's happening in, I don't know, 2 months. I think it's towards the end of the year. So he might not even have the belt by that point. Oliveira, had an off night against Islam. So hopefully he'll come back and be a more competitive fight than the first one was. So Volk's kind of in this holding pattern now. He's got, what's his last name?
Oh, the guy that he got into words with last time, but that's not announced.
That's not official. That's been an option. But then, do you have the rankings there, James?
I can get them.
Are you talking about Rodriguez?
That was the last win.
No, he beat Rodriguez. He's beaten Ortega. He's beat
Ilya Topuria.
Yeah, Ilya Topuria. Holloway beat Arnold not that long ago. So, if it's not fighting 5. Max Holloway's the only option left.
I think he might get to Pereira because they've already had the war of words.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's no reason why Max doesn't deserve another shot.
Yeah.
Would be only the second one to go to 4, wouldn't it? After Marino and Figgy.
Exactly. And it just shows how dominant the two guys are in the division. And
head and shoulders above everyone else.
The crazy thing is Max Holloway's only 31.
Yeah. He's a dog.
And he's got double the most amount of significant strikes than anyone else. He's over 3,000, and the next closest is 1,500.
Blessed him, MMA. He could definitely get another shot against Volk.
Yeah,
be interesting to see what happens.
Because now with the bantamweight division kind of sorting itself out, that there's no one to really step up to take on Volk, and now with lightweight kind of tied up, he can't now go up. Unless he's getting a challenger in 5, Holloway's the only other option. So
yep. I like it. Yeah. Boxing, few talking points. Nikita Tszyu getting a win during the week. Usyk
he got knocked down in that too, so he had to come back and fought a much better back end of that fight and got the win. I think on decision, or was it?
No, he got him in the 8th round.
Eighth round. I think they threw the towel in.
That's what it was. It was towel.
Yeah. So that's great for him. I think his brother's got a title fight unification booked as well. So that's coming up in the not too distant future. That's why is it Charlo takes on Canelo? That's happening at some point. And I think Crawford actually wants the winner of that. So it'll be so the best guys fighting each other is lovely. But that's just where the Zoos are at the moment.
It was 6th round that the towel came in for Jack Brubaker, but Tszyu, did get knocked down. And
was a head clash though. That's right. I remember this now. Yeah.
And what happened with Usyk today? There was a bit of controversy. I saw an article. I haven't seen any highlights.
Yeah. So Jim, if you can find the shot, because he got hit on the belt. And went down and kind of didn't recover really in time. So you could have, that low blow could have been enough they've called it a low blow, but they could have been enough to have stopped the fight. And then young, is it Daniel Dubois could have actually had the win here. And then, of course, a lot of people went back through Usyk's history of fights. And he actually takes a lot of these shots on the belt and gets them as low blows. But it seems like it's maybe a bit of strategy. There's a bit of tactic there. He's a little bit weak in the middle of the belt there because there's been a lot of similar aspects. But my understanding is below the navel, so your belly button, is the considered a low blow. So your belt kind of covers it and is over the top of it. But then Usyk's belt post. See there, watch that.
Ooh.
Post fight, you can see the belt's
It's
actually
definitely on the belt.
Yeah, but when they announce him, you can see his belt is actually below his belly button. So, there's a bit of cheating aspects being thrown around that he doesn't have his belt in the right spot. It should be slightly higher so they can count it. But, yeah, it did knock him down and wounded him, but he did come back through and got his own finish there to continue it. So it'll be interesting to see if they ever make this Fury fight, because rumours are it's back on the cards for Joshua, Wilder and Usyk Fury in
Same night, apparently.
Same night in Saudi Arabia. They've been talked about that for a long time. So whether Fury's watching this, we'll see all the recent other footage of similar things. It looks a bit susceptible to the gut shot.
Well, and also thinking forward as well, seeing all the Saudi money coming through for football and golf, and thinking, well, why can't we cash in from a boxing?
Oh, they've already been doing it.
Like we're boxing, reasonably casual fans of boxing. If you're going to have on the same night, say the four premier heavyweights going at it on one night, that draws in eyeballs that you don't normally get.
Well, Jimmy stopped it there. You see it hits it square on the belt, so maybe a couple knuckles down, a bit lower than that, but
it's close, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of people that in the know think it's that's probably more a fair shot than it is a low blow, and maybe he just wears his belt a bit low.
Interesting times ahead, and
he wins though and retains. That's the main thing. The worst they could do is make it a no contest, but either way, he'll still keep the belt.
And what about in the YouTube world? KSI is fighting which Logan?
No, KSI is fighting...
He's fighting Logan Paul?
No, he's fighting Tommy Fury. So you got to read it. KSI and Logan...
Logan is...
fighting on the same card in October.
You're talking about being a casual boxing fan. For me, the YouTube boxing is very, 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 very casual.
Yes, yeah. The interesting thing is if you find the video of... Tommy's dad,
he flips the table.
Flipping all the tables. He's just sick of the line of questioning. So... KSI,
is his dad Eddie Jones?
No. Close enough. KSI is taking on Tommy Fury, of course, following on his storyline of trying to outdo Jake Paul. So they've got that. It's booked in October, and then Logan's got Dylan Dennis. So that's booked. So KSI had Dylan Dennis a couple months ago. Dylan pulled out. And then that's why Mike Perry is the backup. So they've also done all the promo for Mike Perry. So
he's a bad knuckle boxer.
Former UFC bare knuckle boxer, a handy fighter. So Logan will fight either one of those guys. He's found the flipping tails.
Blowing up.
John Fury, that's a Dylan Dennis cake. Logan throws it at him, throws it in his head. It was a bit of a shit show press conference, but anyway.
Publicity. Yeah,
it's publicity. Everyone's talking about it. But this all goes down in October. There'll be a lot of eyeballs for that. Two of the biggest YouTube stars, and then Tommy Fury having that win over Jake Paul is a good boxer coming up. So yeah,
into a bit of F1 / motorsport.
Yeah. Do you want some? Motorsport. I think it's a couple of weeks ago now, but SVG confirmed that next year he's going to NASCAR to do full time, and I think Brody Kostecki as well is also leaving Supercars to go NASCAR full time. Rumors the money is significantly better is one reason, but also I think they can be competitive there. And I think Shane Van Gisberg's got a potential another NASCAR race this year coming up. So, a few Aussies moving over to NASCAR to join a few others. So we'll have to see how they go. But in the F1 space, we have the race tonight for Aussie fans. Big news, unfortunately, Danny Rick having to bin the AlphaTauri into the wall to not hit fellow Australian Oscar. Ended up, I think, breaking his wrist is what they said.
Yeah, and possibly surgery.
Yeah, so he's gone to see the surgeon that did Lance Stroll's. So Lance Stroll broke both wrists from a mountain bike accident in the preseason. which is they're talking about there. And 2 weeks later, he was racing, so he's gone to
2 weeks later.
Yep. So he's gone to see the same specialist, see if he can
Just put pins in it.
yeah, see if he can come back and keep racing. But it'd be a challenge, and it's been unfortunate because there'd been some non-commitment from Helmut Marko, the boss of Red Bull, to Perez next season. So and Perez in this race has been out-qualified by a whole bunch of cars that he shouldn't have been. So some rumours about his seat again being on the hot seat. And
that was really it. Like when we talked about it, when Danny Rick got his seat at AlphaTauri, he's like, if he can at least just qualify better than Perez, then he's got a good shot at.
Well, he doesn't. He just has.
He's got a chance.
He just has to show good pace, and Perez is probably hurting himself more than the other way around.
Well, that's it. Yeah, knowing that Perez hasn't been performing as well in qualifying as he should. It was Yeah.
So Ricardo now replaced by Liam Lawson, who qualified last. So that's good for Danny Rick, I guess. And then there's been the summer break was pretty quiet, and then all the news hit as soon as the GP started. Haas re-signed Hulk and Magnussen for next season, and I mentioned the non-commitment on Perez, but there's also been a non-commitment on Guangzhou as well for Alfa Romeo because I think he's backing his funding is a bit disappeared, and there's rumours we don't have the budget for him floating around. So it'll be interesting times ahead. But race tonight, Netherlands starts in 25 minutes. Max starts on pole. He's 3 times in a row, I think, there. And Home Grand Prix, and is probably going to win. Interesting, he's got Lando Norris, Russell, Albon, Alonso, and Sainz behind him before you get to his teammate and Perez. So Oscar, our boy there, starts 8th. And Logan Sargent, the first American in a very long time to be in the top 10. They will start 10th in this one. So, that's F1. Yeah, it's about to kick off.
Let's go. That'll wrap us up here on the Esky. Thank you to those that have tuned in. Good luck for your fantasy drafts upcoming. Good luck for your footy teams down under. Whether it's league, whether it's Aussie Rules footy, whether you're lucky enough to have a team in both. Go the Boomers. Bit of it was an upset loss really to Germany today. So still going to get through the group, but we'll probably
fingers crossed can't lose again. Yeah,
we'll finish in second, but hopefully the boys come through with the goods there. What else have we got? We're obviously we're very
UFC coming up.
There's UFC in Sydney in 2 weeks as well.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that next week. EPL's underway. We haven't even spoken about that tonight. It's an exciting time of the year.
Messi's doing messy things.
Yeah, for sure. Up the Matildas, spoke about him at the top of the show. Thank you to those that have listened. Obviously, a few weeks off in between shows.
We've all been crook.
Both of us are crook, young kids at home, and young one about to pop out. So we'll be intermittent in the next few months. But thank you to anyone that's listening. We do appreciate the support. Check us out on the socials. We'll probably see you next week. To be confirmed.
Yep.
All right. Catch you then.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.